Welcome back to the Carp Chronicles podcast with Dean Towey. Long awaited, I must say. Dean first came on our podcast just about 2 years ago, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me. It doesn't seem like that long ago at all. But nonetheless, Dean is back. He has been massively requested. His 2 episodes that we did previously went down really, really well. And I'm sure many of you will be very, very happy to hear Dean back on the podcast. As you can imagine, this is a bait-focused podcast. We don't go too in-depth with things, but of course there are moments where it is quite technical. I'd like to think that there's something for everyone in this episode. You don't need to be a bait guru to understand what Dean is on about. We keep it fairly simple and hopefully, very interesting for you all. Before we jump into the episode, of course, sponsored by Opioids, which is my bait company, which helps support this podcast. We have 2 new products, which will no doubt be of great interest to many of you, which are both designed to target the bigger, older carp. Now, bigger fish and older fish have different receptors, so they pick up on different food signals and they have a preference for different types of foods. So these 2 products are designed to target those type of fish. So definitely not for everyone, but if you're after old, big carp, then you definitely want to have a look at these. They are both based around green lip mussel extract, the full fat, high quality version, I might add. Don't go for the defatted, despite what some companies will tell you. It is not a better product. It's a cheap byproduct, which is why a lot of companies sell the defatted version. Unfortunately, the full fatted version is a lot more expensive. It has a shorter shelf life, but it's much more effective. Anyway, these 2 products, which are the primer powder and the hydro blend, are both focused around green lip mussel, and they contain many other different compounds which echo the effectiveness of the green lipped mussel extract. So definitely check them out. As I said, it's a powder which you would use for bait dusting, hook bait dusting, in with your particles, bags, sticks. Any way you can get it into the swim, it's going to be a winner. It'll actually float up and down the water column, and it is extremely attractive. And coinciding with that, there is a hydro blend, which is a blend of fermented liquids and hydrolyzed liquid infused with full fat green lip mussel extract. So very, very good products. So far, the results, to be honest, have even stunned me. It's taken fish to £50 in the UK. £66, I believe, is the biggest one overseas to be caught on this stuff so far. Loads of 40s have come out from the UK, tons of 30s. It really is actually exceeding all expectations. So definitely go and check that out if you want to target bigger, older carp. That is available from optibaits.com. optibaits.com. That is it. We'll jump in, but before we do, nearly forgot, of course, this episode is also brought to you by BP Milling. Go ahead, check out BP Milling feeds at bpmilling.co.uk. Sustainable fish feed, great stuff, highly recommended by myself. And in fact, you can grab 10% off of their website if you use the code Chronicles10. That's it for the intro. Won't waffle on anymore. Enjoy this episode with Dean Towey. Mate, I'll tell you what, we will start with a bit of a fact. Did you know that your first episode with us was recorded? Well, it was recorded over 2 years ago, but it was published a week tomorrow, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I thought it was about 2 years. Yeah, a long time ago. Man.
Fucking crazy to me. It doesn't seem like that long ago at all.
Yeah, I should have been back on about 3 times during that period, but it's just never happened, does it?
I know. Well, to be fair, we recorded an episode, didn't we? But we lost the audio.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a fucker. But yeah, anyway, welcome back to the podcast. Tipple of the episode. Are you having a few?
Yeah, I'm on the Guinness. I haven't had any Guinness for a while, and I thought to get some Guinness tonight, mate. But it's gone up now. It's gone up quite a bit. But the 1 pint cans now. 1 pint cans Guinness. They only used to be the small cans, but the 1 pinters now.
Yeah, I like a pint can, mate. I do. I usually buy bottles, to be honest with you. And
you've got to pour Guinness anyway out the can. You can't drink it out the can. You have to pour it into a pint glass, so it just doesn't taste right.
Yeah, I've never got into Guinness, to be honest. I went to Ireland. My brother lives there. And obviously that's all I drank, Guinness, but I just can't get into it at all. Other beers I quite like IPAs, which is what I'm drinking tonight.
Yeah, I don't like those IPAs at all.
Do you not? They vary a lot, I think. It's some of them are. It's more like a cider, like a fruity cider, than it is a fucking beer. But yeah, I quite like them. I'm quite into them.
Yeah, I can remember. It was probably about, I don't know. I bet it's about 4 years ago now, but that's the only alcoholic drink I've ever tipped away. My mum had a load of that punk IPA in the blue. Was it black and blue cans? Was it?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, she had a load of that in for Christmas because my niece likes it. I thought, oh, I'll try one of these. I opened it up, mate, and I had one taste of it and tipped it down the sink. I've never done that. I've never done that before with an alcoholic drink.
Yeah, Brewdog. I'm not too keen on that punk IPA, to be honest.
No, I didn't like it at all. I
think
haven't tried any of the others, so yeah, maybe I should try one of the others. But
yeah, some good ones, mate. There is some good ones. I think it was Brewdog that really kicked off the whole microbrewery IPA thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably because the first one I saw were IPAs. Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, mate, lots happened obviously since you last been on. Have you been out fishing much recently?
I've done a bit. I haven't done loads this year, to be honest with you. Just been fishing actually, but we won't talk about it. But it was a disaster. I caught 5 bream. Well, no, it wasn't a disaster. It was actually nice. It was a nice trip. I went onto the canal, rural canal. There's sort of a lake in the middle of the canal, so that'll give it away to anybody who knows what I'm talking about. It was pretty local. I mean, it's about 20 odd miles from my house, but it's rural. And it's where I caught the first carp that I ever caught on a boilie in 1990. So I just fancied a trip down memory lane. So I rang one of the chaps up who runs the club, and I just had a little chat with him, just make sure they've still got the stretch. And I thought I'd buy the ticket, and I just done a couple of nights on there, and it was nice, but I didn't see any carp, unfortunately. It's well known for bream. I mean, it's always had a big head of bream, but they're nomadic, aren't they? Canal carp, they can be anywhere. It was well known back in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. Well, I just found this out actually when I've just been there. I was talking to an old chap who came along. He was fishing. I mean, he's doing well. He's 78 and he still goes fishing on his bike. And he told me that a lot of carp had been put in there in 1988, and that sounds about right because people were catching a few then. I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing, and I had 2 takes on the first night I ever fished it. But there's a marina that's not that far from the wide. Carp always like the marinas. So yeah, they could have been anywhere, but there's people fishing it because the bushes are flattened up, the brambles and they're flattened and pushed back in a few places. So there's people definitely fishing it. So I didn't get anything this time, mate, unfortunately.
It's the thing with canals, it's carp go missing, they jump through locks, I'm sure they get stolen. It's unknown quantity, isn't it, to a large degree, which is kind of nice, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I just fancied a trip down memory lane, but didn't see anything either, though. But I'll be honest with you, I can't ever remember seeing a carp when I fished it between, I think it was about, I first started fishing it for the bream in about 89, and then I fished it a few times up to about 93 for carp. Can't ever remember seeing one, never saw one jump or anything, but we had a few. We didn't have loads out there, but we had a few out. But like you say, with the locks and stuff, it is interesting there because I do know one stretch locally that's between 2 locks, and there's a marina not in the middle of it, but there's a marina in the stretch, and those carp that get caught from that stretch, they've never moved ever. They've been in there years, and they've never gone through the locks or nothing. They're not always in the marina, but they spend a lot of time in the marina, but they do get in the main canal. But they've never moved. I mean, there's fish getting caught out of that canal that have been in there. So now, to my knowledge, they've been getting caught for getting on 20 years, some of those fish.
Yeah. I got a personal question for you, Dean. Sorry, mate. We'll jump straight into it. How old are you?
48 I am, mate.
You're 48, are you?
48, yeah.
Fucking hell. So there was, I don't know if you put a picture on Facebook or something of, I don't know if it was your daughter or son, I can't remember. One of your kids, basically. I remember thinking, fucking hell, I didn't think you'd be old enough to have a kid at that age, but I would never have put you down for 48.
Yeah, I'm getting old now, mate. My knees are giving up on me and everything.
You're knocking on
Well,
50's door, aren't you?
yeah. Yeah, I've got two stepchildren. Like my missus had two children when I met her.
Right.
They were 4 and 8 when we met. So they're 28.
Yeah.
They're 28 and 24 now. But my son's 17. He was 17 the other week. So yeah, well, I'm old enough to be their biological father anyway. 28 it just means I would have had a child when I was 20. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair play, mate. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to ask you. Into bait. I mean, everyone that's listening to this, obviously they're tuning in to listen to your extensive bait knowledge. I know last time we spoke about opioids quite a lot. And we've basically, for the listener, but obviously me and Dean we spoke earlier about what we're going to cover. There's basically two main things that I think we're going to cover today. Of course, we'll go down a shitload of rabbit holes as we always do. One of them is opioids, and the other is targeting big carp, which is something that I've really been looking into recently. But starting off with the opioids, mate. I mean, obviously 2 years ago, I don't know if you're anything like me, but my knowledge is changing all the time. My opinion changes as well. Is your stance on opioids the same as it was when we spoke last? Have you found out any more? What's your stance on it at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be a bit careful because otherwise we can make it a bit esoteric, where it's going to be a little bit too narrow for the listener, and they'll need too much knowledge to understand what we're talking about. So just try to keep it fairly simplistic and general. Otherwise, like I say, people's background knowledge might have to be a little bit too specialised to understand things properly. But my knowledge hasn't, my opinion hasn't changed at all on opioids and bait. My knowledge has probably progressed a little bit, but I'd already done a lot of work on it before I ever did the first podcast with you. I've done quite a lot of work on that between probably 2008 and 2015, more so 2008 and around 2011, 12. But then once I started on this wheat line, I thought I did quite a bit of work on that. And that coincided with the creation of another bait and stuff. So, but yeah, it hasn't. Yeah, my opinion's not changed. I definitely think there's a distinct possibility that carp can get attached to baits due to the fact that they're liberating these bioactive peptides, opioids, if you like. But yeah, I mean, we didn't talk completely about everything that I'd researched and knew about when we spoke about it before, because there is quite a lot more things that can liberate these opioid-like peptides that you can include in bait. So that's something we didn't talk about last time.
Yeah, Casomorphins and gluteomorphins were the main things.
Yeah,
I think they're the only two, actually.
Yeah.
Whatever sources of opioids are there
well,
that you would put in a bait?
Yeah, I mean, you don't read about these things. I mean, you don't read much about any of it, really. The Casomorphins have been covered a bit, but yeah, I mean, you can get you do get opioid-like peptides, bioactive peptides from whey proteins. Also, which will probably surprise people, you can get them from meat derivatives. Well, mainly the blood powders, really. So you've got your purified blood powder, possibly even blood plasma. I'm not 100% sure on that, but 100% definitely purified blood powder. You get opioid-like peptides liberated from that. You can get some from maize. I think rapeseed. There's quite a lot of things that have got potential for this to happen.
What the blood powder surprises me. What is it in there that what?
Well, they've all got their. Sorry.
What part of the blood is providing the opioids?
Well, it'll just be one part of the proteins. I don't know. It may be the albumin-like stuff that's in there, but I know from my research that you do get things called hemorphins. So that's basically the opioid-like peptides that can be liberated from blood powder. And blood powder it's something I have used, and it's quite a good ingredient, to be honest with you. But I've never used. Well, I say I've never used it. I've never sold a bait with it in at high levels because it doesn't smell particularly nice, and it makes your bait go black if you put quite a bit of it in. So
It's quite
yeah,
firming as well, isn't it?
yeah, it's a good. It's probably, I would say, it's probably the best value for money binding and hardening ingredient you can buy because it's not expensive at all, and it's got about 92% protein. It's high quality protein and it's cheap blood powders. But like I say, the only problem is put more than about 2% in it, make your bait go black, and it doesn't smell particularly nice. I mean, the carp don't mind it at all, and that's what it's all. That's the most important thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it does give your bait a bit of a pong. I mean, it depends what else is in the bait, but it does come through. You can smell the blood powder in your bait.
Mm.
And it's a bugger to work with as well because it's proper fine and it gets everywhere, sticky, gets all over the place.
Oh yeah. It's like spirulina, isn't it? You find it fucking.
Yeah, it goes everywhere. Blood powder does, yeah. Well, I mean, when I used to sell a bait with it in, I think I used to use it at about 2%, and from a binding and hardening point of view, 2% was more than enough. Really, it was enough.
So these opioids that are in the heme, presumably, obviously, you're not going to get that in blood plasma, are you? Powder.
I'm not 100% sure because I haven't done enough research to actually state categorically whether or not it would be in blood plasma. It may well be. It may well be. Who knows? Like you say, because I mean, it's called hemorphin, but just because it's got the prefix hem, it doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from the hemoglobin. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? But I know it's definitely something that's possibly getting liberated during digestion if you're using purified blood powder. So yeah.
Interesting. I should have said this at the beginning. Just backtrack a little bit for the people that haven't listened to Dean's previous episode or episodes. The whole idea of utilizing opioids in your bait is to act as habit formers, so basically to keep the carp coming back, almost like hopefully morally getting them addicted to the to the bait, right?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a bit out of order saying you're sort of getting addicted to your bait, but I'll be totally honest with you. That's what everyone's been trying to do anyway from year dot. I mean, that's why people pre-bait, and they try and get fish trained to eating the bait. But at the end of the day, as well, it's not like they're getting nothing out of it. So they're getting nutrient. They've got to actually eat these things anyway for it to happen. So as long as the bait's pretty nutritional, they're getting something back for it, aren't they? But yeah, there is a distinct possibility that they can be habit forming. Baits with a lot of wheat and a lot of casein, a lot of whey protein and a lot of blood powder. Like I say, there's even opioid-like peptides that are possibly liberated from soya as well. So there's lots of things that it can be happening with.
So it's most likely that most baits out there have a certain level of opioid in it, right?
I would say so, yeah. I would say so. But obviously, the degree or the possibility of it being habit forming all depends on the quantities, I would say, the quantities of the ingredients in the bait.
Yeah.
It's like the wheat thing. I think that with wheat, because most ingredients that have got a wheat content, and because wheat's low protein, it's only 13% protein. I think that you need quite a lot of the wheat-based ingredients in your bait before you're going to get this habit-forming thing going on, which it's fairly easy to achieve anyway, because it's not even costly, because most of the wheat-based ingredients are fairly cheap. Some bird foods have gone up a bit in price, but in general, they're not the most expensive ingredients.
No. Yeah, bird foods are expensive now, aren't they? They really are.
Yeah, some of them are. Some of them are, mate. Yeah. I mean, if you're only buying a 1 kilo box of them, some of these bird foods, what you get, they're pretty expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I question the like in this day and age, the relevance of a bird food in a bait. I don't know. I don't personally use them now. I don't really. I think, it's, if you break down what's in it, you can put those things in individually without some of the less desirable things.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want a few seeds in your bait and a bit of roughage or whatever, or yeah, I mean, we could chat about bird feeds for ages because it's something that I've often. I mean, I do use ready-made bird foods from a couple of suppliers, but I did at one time. I used to have a bird food blend made up for me. It was a local animal feed merchant, and she'd grind things up for me as well. So I used to have two different bird foods blended together and ground up, and that was quite good. But she stopped doing it in the end because she just said it was. You used to get the grinder all a bit manked up and stuff, and she used to use the grinder for other things, and I think she just got fed up of doing it. Really, to be honest with you, because I was only having probably, I don't know. I mean, what bird foods? I was probably having maybe half a ton a year off of this ground up bird food. So yeah, I mean, she's not she's pretty busy with certain things. They sell a hell of a lot of things that place does, but yeah, I mean, she used to grind anything up for me. It was quite good, really, but she won't do it anymore.
You ever fancied getting your own mill? I was looking at them the other day.
You can get small ones, can't you, for about 150 quid? You can get the little ones, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something. I mean, even though I'm rolling on machines now, I mean, I do still roll based on hand tables. I forget who it was. He was quite surprised when I said that to him the other week. But I still do roll two sizes of bait on the hand tables. But I've got machines. But I've never really ground anything up other than that bird food blend. I've never had any problems with the two types of machines that I've used. They've always rolled the bait pretty well. And some of my baits have got loads of bits in them, loads of bits and bobs in them,
So back to these opioids, right? Let's say someone wants to design a bait around these opioids, these habit-forming compounds. Do you think there's like a different level of efficacy between, say, like a casomorphine, an opioid from milk, or from blood, or from plant matter? Do you think it matters? How would they interact with the carp differently from one another?
Well, the thing is, I mean, anything that we're discussing with regard to all this is basically our beliefs, because there's very little. We spoke about it earlier before we started recording. There's very little scientific information that's interesting, that interests a carp angler from this. There's lots of information about the habit-forming properties of foodstuffs. There's loads of stuff that you can find out with relation to human beings, but there's next to nothing. I mean, there's bits and bobs. But there's very little that comes at it from the angle that the angling fraternity is going to be interested in. But I mean, from what I've done over the years with bait and the different things I've seen, I would say that the caseins, I mean, probably the whey proteins as well, really, because when you say the casein, you've all the baits I've ever made with plenty of casein, and there's whey protein in there as well. So like your milk style baits, they're probably the ones that are going to initiate probably not necessarily the strongest response, but because the wheat, like I say, with the wheat, the bird food based baits, it's quite difficult to get a similar level of opioids being liberated from them because of the fact that wheat's only 13% protein. When you're working with milk casein that's 90% protein, then obviously it's simple mathematics that tells you from that alone you're going to get more liberated. But that said, I still think that you can exploit this opioid thing with wheat-based baits, and I'm 100% convinced you can get fish on the wheat-based baits. You can get them searching out for those baits. You can get them attached to those baits, 100%. I mean, and when you say you've not used bird foods and you don't use them, they're not very popular anymore. I mean, bird food baits, the labeled bird food baits, there's not many firms that sell them anymore, is there?
No. I mean, to be honest, I like a bird food. I like a bird food bait. I've used them, loads and loads over the years. It's just, when you look at the ingredients, the quantities of different things, it's like if I wanted to go down that route of making a bird food, I think I could probably make a much better bird food by adding the things in individually that I would want in there at the levels that I want them. And it's probably going to be cheaper as well, if you see what I mean. So
yeah, well, yeah, like you say, I mean, if you were thinking about working with a yellow bird food, then you'd need egg biscuits, and you can't really make egg biscuit yourself. Well, I suppose you could, but I don't think it'd be as good as something what you could buy from somebody like Ace.
Yeah. So see, why would you want egg biscuit in your bait?
Well, it's well, I mean, egg biscuit. It's definitely pretty good with the binding. I mean, all the egg biscuit based bird foods like your nectar blends and your red factors and stuff, they're all pretty good ingredients, and they bind well. And that'll be due to the egg biscuits. That will.
Yeah, definitely.
But well, I'll turn it round. So if you were gonna, with you saying you don't use bird foods, I mean, I don't even know. You're not rolling any baits anymore, anyway, are you? Because you're buying are you still on Kenny Gates's bait?
No, I've not bought any from Kenny for a long time. No.
Oh right, yeah. So you're making some bait for yourself again now, or not?
Yeah, making my own bait. Yes, is the short answer. So since our first chat, which was over 2 years ago, obviously I went about making a milk protein. I think I even mentioned this on that podcast.
Yeah, you did, because you're trying to get loads of information out to me. You were fishing for information from me, weren't you?
Yeah. So since then, I rolled it, used it for a bit, used Kenny's in between. But yeah, so basically for the last probably year, but yeah, probably about a year, I've solely been using my own baits, which I'm rolling myself. I have used a bit of Kenny's. I can't remember the last time I bought a bait from Kenny's, a long time ago. Nothing against Kenny's bait. It's extremely good. If I was going to buy a bait in, I wouldn't hesitate to use either Kenny's or your own bait, scientific baits. But no, I've wanted to go down my own route. The baits I'm rolling, I'll be selling the base mixes. I've been selling them to some lads for a while. So yeah, I love designing bait, tweaking bait, changing it. I'm going to be honest, I don't love the rolling, like the constant fucking...
Nobody does me
rolling. It's
nobody. I mean, I do it for a job. I do it for a job, and it's very boring, mate. Rolling baiters, very boring. I love nothing more than going in the unit and having no pressure on me whatsoever to roll any bait, and I can just start tinkering around with different ingredients. Yeah. I'll try this, I'll try that, or I'll play about with this, but unfortunately, that doesn't bring any money in. So, yeah, you've got to get the bait rolled. I mean, it's not too bad when I'm machine rolling, but mind you, hand rolling's not too bad on the right size. I mean, the only two sizes that I sell that I use the hand tables for is 12 mils and 18 mils, and 18s is a walk in the park because they're easy. Yeah. 12 mils is a real pain in the arse. So if I've got the money next year, I'll be buying a machine so I can do 12 mils on the machine.
Yes, and I like a 24 miller. And they are a fucking dream to roll.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a machine. I do advertise these as 22 mils, but they're not. It's a 20 mil machine, but some of them come out slightly bigger than 20 mil. And I had somebody say, "Oh, the odd one wouldn't go in the 20 mil throwing stick." So I thought, well, I better start advertising these as 22s, but they're not. They're 20 mils. And to be fair, that machine rolls a damn good 20 mil bait, because people think large baits are easy to roll, but they're not. You've got to get everything bang on with a large bait. Otherwise, it exaggerates everything, so you can tell when they're out. You can't tell when a 12 mils out, but you can tell when a 20 mils out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. See, I got jumping all over the place a little bit, but I've got a question for you, right? And this question has sort of plagued my mind for the last couple of years, really. Say you want to use casomorphins to act as habit for, to get the carp to keep eating your bait, basically, right? Let's say you're going down the route of more of a kind of old school milk protein bait, very high levels of refined milks.
Well,
with the idea.
Well, I mean,
hang on. I'll sort of preface it. With the idea that obviously there's going to be more casomorphins in there. Generally, the carp isn't going to eat as much of that type of bait. Luckily, because obviously outrageously expensive. Do you think they still have the ability to get the carp hooked on them? No, pun not intended. Get the carp to keep eating them? Or do you think that the carp has to eat them more en masse? I don't know if I've explained that very well or not.
No, run it by me again, because it sort of sounded a bit muddled up, that.
So say my milk protein bait, right? It's different from well, there aren't really any proper milks on the market now, is there? I know you do one, but this would be a lot higher in milks than yours. I'm not saying it's better than yours. I'm just saying it's higher in milks, right? It's very expensive. It's not really economically viable to sell for a company, although I am going to sell it. So my theory is, I mean, you're not going to be feeding that much of that kind of bait to a carp. I also think it's probably going to fill them up quite quickly as well. So
yeah,
the carp aren't going to be eating as many of those round balls, but the concentration of casomorphins in my bait is going to be sky high compared to anything else. So do you think that it's still going to have that habit forming effect, or do you think I'm missing out because the carp aren't eating as many balls, if that makes sense?
There's a few issues, really. I mean, one is if it's sky high in milks. I mean, let's say by eye we're talking over 60%. So we're talking over 60% refined milk proteins. So we'll be talking about whey proteins, casein, caseinates. We'll just use them. I mean, obviously you've got the hydrolyzed stuff as well.
Yeah, there's hydrolyzed in there.
But we'll just talk about them. Now, one problem what I think you can possibly get with it is that the digestion of it won't be that good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the digestion ain't that good, then the chance of it liberating any bioactive peptides is reduced. So you've got to be careful how high you go, because I can always remember reading an article, and it triggered some memories in my mind. Read an article where Jeff Bowers was talking about an old bait that he used to do, and he used to call it the 1066 mix, and I think it was 10 ounces of casein, 6 ounces of caseinate, 6 ounces of lactalbumin or something, and it caught fish, but the digestibility of it was shit because it was bound up big time. It was like glue, because it does. I mean, the milk proteins, as you know, they bind super strongly. So I mean, although we spoke about it before, that the milk proteins are solubilized in the carp's gut.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not getting much mastication, so it's not being chewed up much, and there's lots of large particles of it going into the carp's digestive tract, then it stands to reason that if the surface area isn't as great for the interaction with the enzymes in the gut, because they've got a simple gut, then the reaction is not going to be quite as good as something that you've managed to get them to chew up properly, and it's all dispersed properly in the gut.
Yeah, you can counteract though with other ingredients, though, can't you?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, but I mean
Jeff's mix was 100% milk proteins, which is
it was 100% milk proteins.
Yeah. My mix is 50 to 60%, around about 55%, 57%. I think it's digestible. I mean, I think it's very sort of trendy now, isn't it, to run your finger along the
well, yeah, you'll know it this year.
And they are shitting it out, like without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
So I think if you're clever and you put the right things with it, I think it can pass through. Now,
Yeah,
just
well,
because it's passing through doesn't mean they're assimilating it, does it? That's the other thing.
Well, no, but I mean that's another thing that we could talk about, because the carp don't get they could do with eating everything twice that they eat, really, carp could, so they could get everything out of it, because they don't get everything on the first transit, and they never will do. So when people talk about assimilation of nutrients for a carp, well, 90% of the time, if you're on a bait and they're shitting it out, it doesn't look a great deal different than what it'd look like if you left it in a bucket and just like soften up for a week.
Yeah, because everyone's fascinated with it going through super quick, but if it goes through too quick, they don't have the opportunity to draw out the nutrients, do they?
No, and like I say, I don't think carp do ever draw all the nutrients out of
no
anything that goes into them. So it's always going to, obviously, if you start off with something that's 35% protein, a boilie, then they may be getting, I don't know, I'm guessing, but they might get 10% of that out on the transit through the gut. But if you're starting off with something that's low in protein, then they're going to get nothing out of that. So that's why it is important to make the bait fairly nutritional if you're trying to route the carp along,
Do you think that's something like milks where it solubilizes in the gut? Do you think that's an advantage that it has in its favor? Maybe that's why they're so effective, or one of the reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I think it's definitely a factor. Yeah, but I am also I do also think it depends on how the finished bait comes out as well, because like I said, just if the finished bait is pretty hard, I think that kind of, although like I'm contradicting myself slightly because I'm saying it solubilizes, but I don't think it will do properly if it isn't chewed up properly.
No, but I mean, I think you're the same as me. You like a soft bait, don't you?
Yeah, I don't like an hard bait. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So, but I mean, going back to them not taking everything out, I think that is the same for every animal in the world. I mean, I know it counts for humans. Like we don't draw everything out of food.
No.
There's a lot of protein in our poo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our digestive system's quite a bit different than the carp, but you don't get everything out. You don't get everything out.
I mean, our digestive system's much more sophisticated and efficient than a carp's, and we don't even get it all out.
Exactly. I mean, that's why you've got to be careful with the milk proteins, with the carp, because of the nature of milk proteins, the globular proteins. So, I mean, just to put that in perspective for people, you've got two types of proteins. One's globular and one's fibrous. Now, your fish meals are fibrous proteins, which means they're not folded. So the proteins are not folded up. So in order to digest that protein, the protein doesn't need unfolding. Obviously, because it's accessible already to the digestive enzymes. Now, with the globular proteins and the milk proteins, the proteins are all folded up into different configurations, and that's why you really need, in order to use milk, if you wanted to use milk proteins at higher levels, then you're overloading the carp's digestive mechanisms because their digestive system isn't acidic, so it doesn't have this unfolding effect as efficiently as our digestive system does on the globular proteins. So that's why you can overcook the milk proteins and you can just overload the digestive system. But you can counteract that with acidic ingredients in your bait as well, and liquids and stuff. There's lots of factors that you can consider to maximize the digestive potential of what you're putting together in the bait.
Yeah, definitely. And I got to mention enzymes, which are, like, last time you were on, you were sort of telling me off, and I understand what you were getting at.
About the amylase thing.
Amylase, yeah, enzymes.
No, I mean, we actually came to a fairly satisfactory conclusion, in so much as we actually did come to the conclusion eventually that there possibly is one thing that might be happening during an enzymatic reaction that the carp can pick up on, and that's a localized pH change or an ionization.
Yeah.
And there is a potential that is actually happening. I did think about that afterwards, and there is a potential for that.
I think I was saying that I think there's perhaps some kind of magic voodoo type stuff. And
Yeah,
I'm being a bit
well,
silly in my wording, but that's going on that perhaps we don't know the full story of it. That was my point, and I think you were being very scientific in your approach to it and saying, well, no, because X equals Y. You know, you were being very kind of scientific about it, which I totally understand. That is your bait company's called Scientific Baits, isn't it? I get that, but have you not changed your mind? Because that sounds like I'm patronizing or something. But have you had any more thoughts on it? Or?
Yeah, like I said to you, if you might not be able to remember, but you kept pushing me. You kept pushing the issue, and then eventually, I had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I said, "Well, there is one thing that could be happening." As a sort of, I mean, you was cheering it to sub-reaction. I wouldn't cheer it that, but there is one thing that could be happening, and during the process of the enzyme reaction, you could be getting ionization. Now, ionization is a very important part of attraction in carp bait.
Yeah,
ionization is fundamental. That's basically what attraction is. Carp can only detect things through ionization, really.
Yeah. And you've got a enzyme product, haven't you?
Yeah, the Enzyme. Yeah.
So you obviously have faith in enzymes, otherwise you wouldn't have a product.
Yeah, I mean the Enzyme. I mean, I think people think it's a bit of a gimmick, but it isn't. It does work. I'd never ever gone down the route of using enzymes and bait for a couple of reasons, mainly. One, I couldn't ever see the point in it because you can get liquids and ingredients that'll liberate amino acids, peptides, and all the rest of it. You know, so I couldn't ever see the point. And the other one was you got no control over it. And then the other one is if I'm going to make a boilie, although I don't like a hard bait, I do like a bait that I can use a throwing stick with.
Yeah.
So if I can't use a throwing stick with it because it's an enzyme active bait, then what's the difference between that and just sticking a load of bait in a bucket with a few liquids or whatever, bolstering the attractiveness of it with it and then spamming it out? Because that's what you'll have to do with an enzyme active bait. You'll have to spam it out.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically a carpet feed. I mean, Pete Morton always used to say with that enzyme bait that he came up with it was Pete's idea, I think, and then Dean rolled it. You know, he always used to say it's basically a carpet feed, and you can't put it out with a stick or whatever. And I used to think, well, I can't see the point in that whatsoever. You know, but he always used to come back with the counter argument that he reckoned he knew. He actually reckoned he knew what specific amino acids were being liberated from that bait, and he seemed to think that was the ultimate attraction signal to the carp. What the validity of that statement is, I don't know. It sounds a little bit far-fetched to me, given what I know about enzyme reactions.
How did he how did he say that he quantified that? Like, how did
he didn't. He didn't.
Because that boggles. I don't see how you could find that out.
Well, I mean, my dog's going to bark in a minute, I think, Sam, because my message is just coming through the door. So
it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. So you'll just hear the dog barking. But no, he didn't. He didn't validate the statements whatsoever. But he possibly could substantiate it if he could show you the specific enzymes he was using, and then he could identify the substrates that they were working on, the ingredients within the bait. But I always found it a little bit too much of a bold statement, really, because there's other ingredients in the bait. So enzymes, although some of them are specific, they're never super specific, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Did you ever speak to Alan about all of
that? On the forum? No,
Serenity.
We never. Yeah, we never.
You spoke to him on the phone, didn't you? You were.
No, I've corresponded with him a few times, emails and stuff. In fact, he sent me a message. Was it this year? Yeah, I think he sent me a message this year. I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for him to publish his book. He's wrote a book. He says he's gonna send me a copy of it when he does, but I don't know how long it's going to be. Maybe he'll never publish it. I don't know, but yeah, very knowledgeable man, mate. Very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. Most people won't have a clue what we're on about, but he's got to be. He's pretty old, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in his 70s, mate. He's in his 70s. Yeah, it might even be. I don't know. He might be. Well, think back to some of the historic things that he's talked about with bait. Yeah, I'd say he was probably born certainly no later than 1950. So yeah, he was around in the birth of the boilie. I think he knew Fred Wilton. He knew a lot of the early names in the bait game and stuff. Ian Booker and people like that. He knew everybody, and there was nothing he didn't know about the history of bait. And there wasn't a great deal he didn't know about the technicalities of it either, even the modern stuff, So, yeah.
He was next level, wasn't he? He still is.
Yeah.
But I was in awe of like his knowledge was.
Yeah, incredible. But I mean, he would never give you anything on a plate, and he would send people. No. He'd send people down blind alleys all the time.
Yeah.
But if you actually thought about what he'd said and did a bit of investigation, he'd always put you in the right direction.
I was lucky enough to exchange quite a few messages with him back in the heyday of the forum, and yeah, he was like a stern teacher that was like, he cared, but he didn't want to just give it to you, and he would tell you were full of shit if you needed to be told, and he was good, really good. Yeah, he'd be an amazing podcast guest. Amazing.
I mean, he would, yeah. But I mean, his book. I don't know if he'll fat me for talking about it, but it's not. It's just not conventional whatsoever. I mean, I'm not going to mention what he's been doing because it's not my place to say. He has told me what the book's going to be about, and it would be. I hope he publishes it. Well, even if he only does 10 copies, I hope he sends me one. So,
it ain't going to be about boilies, is it? I'll tell you that.
It may touch on him. I mean, he doesn't use boilies. I mean, like I say, he hasn't used boilies for a long time. And he definitely doesn't believe. At one time, he was an advocate of the HMV theory, but he definitely doesn't believe in the HMV theory anymore.
No. I don't think he has for a long time, has he?
No, a long time. But yeah, I mean, as regards to what you said a while back, do I think that you could still get the attachment or addiction, if you like, from something that they're not going to eat much of? But I mean, they will. Even a bait like that, what you're saying you put together, they'll still eat plenty of that. They'll digest that. If they can crap it out, they'll eat plenty of it.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I mean, so I've witnessed fish like eating this stuff with just like just going mad for it. Basically, what you want to see from a bait. Yeah. Now, is it the Casomorphins? Probably not, because they're acting like that on like the first time seeing it. So that can't be the Casomorphins, can it? So it's. I think we said this on the phone either earlier today or the other day. Like, you're never really going to know, are you, with testing things? You can only sort of draw the best conclusion that you can. I suppose it can't help, can it?
Well, you're never gonna be able to say anything with 100% veracity. But anecdotal stuff for me tells me that fish definitely get addicted to baits 100%. There's no two ways about it. No two ways about it. I mean, like you just said, on first introduction. I mean, well, hold on a second. I mean, you've just said you're using hydrolyzed milks.
Yep.
Well, if you're using hydrolyzed milks, then there's no reason. If you're using hydrolyzed milks, there's no reason why there isn't an opioid interaction immediately. because there possibly could be.
But the way that I understand it, opioids work by
Yes, I know what you're going to say now. I know what you're going to say now. It's got to be ingested and digested and in the bloodstream and all the rest of it, and the blood-brain barrier. But as I spoke about before, nobody really knows what's going on with the carp, mate, 100% as regards attraction and what they can detect and all the rest of it. People don't. People might know a lot, and we do know a lot. We do know a hell of a lot about a carp now, and what it's attracted to and what it can detect. But it still hasn't been fully elucidated, so you can't rule anything out. You cannot rule anything. You can't rule out. What you can't rule out is you can't rule out that if you've got a source of opioid peptides that's soluble and it's in the water around your trap. I mean, we'll talk about something that was on my podcast. I mean, can I mention my podcast, Sam?
No.
So,
of course you can, mate. Yeah,
I've started doing a podcast myself, just interviewing anglers at the moment. And anyways, now the last bit, I've only had 2 guests on so far. Now, the last guy who I had on, another local angler from Stoke, where I live, John Leyland. I mean, he loves your podcast, by the way, John does. You probably know who he is.
Mate, we have so many people messaging.
Yeah,
I don't recognise the name, but
yeah, you might just know him as John7628 or whatever his username is. I mean,
no,
he's he's a bit he keeps a low profile, John does, but he's had some absolutely outstanding results on solid PVA bags. Now, it's a bit mad, it's a bit crazy that round about the same time that I came up with this, when I was starting off with this from enzyme additive of mine, which was intended as to be used initially in sticks and PVA bags, he came up with this idea. But we went down slightly different avenues, in so much he wasn't employing any enzymes, but we were the mindset that we both got was astonishingly close. And I'd spoke to John many times over the years, but we hadn't come up with this in a concerted manner at the same time. But he was using, I mean, he spoke about it on my podcast, so I'm not giving any of his secrets away. He was using Pepto Pro hydrolyzed casein.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He was using Pepto Pro in his bags. Now, you know, I have said to him, I don't know if I said to him on the podcast or whether I said to him when we were just chatting, I said, there is a possibility that you've increased the attraction there of your traps through the fact that you've got opioid peptides knocking about in the water around your rigs, because they'll be there. You know, it's a hydrolyzed casein, so obviously the solubility is there. And as I say, it might sound a little bit off the wall, but there's no way in the world that you can 100% write off the fact that carp may well be attracted to opioid-like peptides that are in the water.
But can we not see if there's a receptor for that? Well, is that not possible?
Well, there won't be any work that's been done that's going to say that it's even possible. But at the same time, there's lots of things that carp are attracted to that don't fit the criteria, if you get what I'm saying. And as we spoke about before with these solitary sensory cells, no one really knows what's going on with them, mate. You know, There's loads of things. I mean, it's like Jason Ryder was on your podcast, and he's 100% convinced that carp are attracted to vitamin C, and I am. But I mean, when I spoke about it with you, I just said they definitely like things with vitamin C in, and that's as good as being attracted to it, really. You know, but I've never come across any work what says that a carp is attracted to ascorbic acid, but that's not to say that they're not.
No, definitely. That's the thing, isn't there? I think there's a lot that obviously there's a lot that we don't know. It would be impossible to have a proper peer-reviewed study on every single freaking thing that we could possibly feed a carp. It's just not going to happen, is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, and like I say, a lot of this stuff gets done for academic reasons. rather than targeted to one specific outcome sort of thing, like fishing. I mean, it's highly unlikely. I did actually try and get a PhD once when I finished doing my master's degree in 1999. I thought if I go back and do it, I could have got a PhD straight away doing something related to the masters. But I thought, if I go back, I'd like to do something related to fishing, and I came up with a few topics, and I did approach a few people, but nobody was interested. I mean, I don't think I went to anybody like Sparsholt or anybody like that, because it was a bit more specific. So you sort of needed more like there was a few different topics there I thought about, but I spoke to a few chaps in a few different departments, but nobody was really interested in pursuing it because you couldn't get the funding for it. So,
how much money do you need for something like that?
Who knows, mate? For a PhD, like lasts about 3 or 4 years minimum. So I reckon you'd be talking bare minimum. You'd probably need about 20 grand a year, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's a lot of cash, isn't it?
I mean, it's like we were talking about today on the phone. I've got an IBC in my garden. I've been growing some carp up in there, but they seem to have stopped growing now because it's a pain in the arse because you can't get the water quality brilliant. So they've grown, but they haven't grown brilliantly. So I'm probably going to get offloaded with these ones. I mean, some nice fish in there as well. So when I do put them wherever I'm putting them, we won't talk about that. We'll see how they get on. And I am actually going to get some more carp in there, like I said to you, and do. Now, it's not the most scientific thing. I mean, there's loads of factors involved, but I'm going to try and do a little bit of a crude study, if you like, to just see if I can get any consistent feedback or any patterns emerging about preferences, especially related to baits with high potential opioid content. And I was going to do a little bit of a long-term experiment with these carp in the IBC. So I mean, but like we said today, it'd be great if you could get the proper funding for that to be done somewhere at Sparsholt or something. But I don't know if it's going to ever happen. It's always got to be, the money's always got to be there, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think this thing that you're going to do with the automatic feeders, and then sort of see where they're going to over a period of time. I think that's amazing. I think that's very interesting to me. But surely you've got to have two baits that are identical, but one has, say, the calcium caseinate in, and the other one, you've got to have the nearest thing to that doesn't contain opioids, but has the same, as closer, amino acid profile, protein content as possible.
Technically and scientifically speaking, you're right, because you need, if you like, it's called a control, isn't it? But I mean, because it's a crude study, I wasn't going to be. I mean, in the ideal world, like you say, you would need 2 recipes, and then one of them's got the casein, and so one of them's got the potential for the liberation of high number of opioid-like peptides, bioactive peptides, and then the other one hasn't. So you'd have to replace it with something else, which in itself could be quite tricky because obviously casein's very high in protein, and there ain't many other things that you can get for matches. So there'd still be a discrepancy there with the amino acid profiles and stuff and the formulas. So yeah, I mean, you could play around with it. You could slightly play around with it. I mean, it's how long as there's so many variables. But I was going to just do a very simplistic study because you've said automatic feeders. They're not. They're going to be these little feeders they've come up with. I don't know if they'll work yet, but I think they will. The carp have actually got to nudge them to get their feed out of them. They've got to, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm going to try and get round to it. I was going to do it in the spring, but I didn't get round to it. I even made some of these little feeders up, and this is how much of a bit of a bodge job it is. I just made them out of the 150ml blood bottles that I've got down the unit. But they look like they'll work. They look like they'll work because of how I've made them. So yeah, but it would be interesting because. I mean, you never know. You could actually be very surprised, and straight away there could be an extremely marked difference in which foodstuff they prefer. But like you said, though, it could be down to loads of factors, but it would still be information gained what you wouldn't have.
Yeah. I suppose if the baits were going to be completely different, you'd be better off having more of them, wouldn't you? Say four feed stations, only one of them with decent amounts of opioids in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you did that, you could, you might skew the results a little bit because, well, this is how I'm looking at it. You might skew the results a little bit because the fish might move to one of the feed stations that another fish isn't around because they think, well, he's there, so I'll go next door or whatever. But if there's only two, then if you really do want it, then you're going to get that competitive element where they might want to push one another out the way, sort of thing. But if there's four, they might think, well, I'll just go next door, still get a bit of that. It's not as nice as that, but I can have a bit of that, can't I? You know?
Yeah, I suppose it would only work if the opioids really do have a dramatic effect. That's the only way it would really work, isn't it?
Well, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see because I'm pretty much convinced the opioids and brain chemistry is massively overlooked. In fact, I've never heard anybody even talk about brain chemistry in bait other than maybe Mark McKenna. Nobody else seems to have ever even concentrated on it. And I can explain away all the early findings of Fred Wilton's HMV theory through brain chemistry and opioid peptides. I can explain all of it away. And it's watertight. Nobody could pick holes in my explanation for the HMV theory. But unfortunately, when you've got certain people pushing the HMV theory still, then and a lot of people aren't interested in bait. I mean, it's a bit of a niche market, isn't it? Most people are just interested in what makes the buzzers beep and what they get the fish on the end of the line with, and that's about it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but that's. That is why we're so fascinated in bait, isn't it? We're all looking for that thing that's going to make a significant difference.
But I mean, yeah, people are looking for that thing, but do they do any more research other than the fact that they go, "Oh, he's been nailing it on such and such," and then they go, "Get some of that." But do they actually look into it? No, I don't think they do. 90% of the time, they'll go, "Yeah, such and such has been catching on that." And then they'll just buy some, and it either works or doesn't work. But they won't get to the bottom of it. They won't think, "Well, do you think this?" They don't really investigate it, do they? There's only people like us, shadows like us, who investigate it.
Yeah. I went up to see Dave. I don't know if you heard the Dave Moore episode.
Yeah, I've listened to both of them. Yeah,
we were shit faced, unfortunately. But yeah, off air, I don't think we spoke about it on air. But yeah, he spoke about opioids, and he'd listened to your podcast with us, and yeah, he had some interesting viewpoints on it. I mean, that guy knows a lot about bait as well. Like he really does. He knows his onions.
Yeah, he does. He does. Yeah. I mean, I did. I mean, keep this in if you want, but I did message Dave Moore. Because I wouldn't mind a bit of a chat with him about his beliefs in milk proteins and stuff, because I've spoke about it before with the larger fish and the older fish. And I did message him, but nothing came of it, and he didn't seem like he was very enthusiastic about chatting to me, to be honest with you. So there you go.
Yeah. He's a wealth of knowledge, mate. Once you'd get on well with him. He's absolutely a lovely bloke. He really is. Once you get him going, he's he's away. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't knock what he's done with bait.
No,
I mean, he's been at it. He's older than me. He's been at it longer than me. But it's the same with his beliefs in the milk proteins. I mean, he said on your podcast that he ditched fish meal and just used milk proteins, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I've got, I think we spoke about it before, I've got loads of theories on milk proteins for larger fish and older fish. And I'm 100% convinced that I'm on the right lines with it all. I wouldn't necessarily say that I've definitely got to the bottom of it, but I'm definitely along the right lines of it. I mean, Dave's fishing for these giganticus fish, isn't he? He's fishing for these enormodons abroad, you know. So, I mean, it's slightly different in so much as there's loads of them there. There's lots and lots of big fish, but at the same time, I do 100% believe that very large fish or fish with the potential to get very large, and that very large might only mean £35 because it all depends where you're fishing.
Yeah, but I mean, he's developing baits that are being fished in the UK. I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but like for some very fucking big fish, you'll never hear about them in the news. Like you'll never hear about them. So yeah, I know what you mean about the foreign fish. I think that's a different kind of thing, isn't it?
I am definitely not detracting from any of the captures, but what I'm saying is, he's fishing waters where a 50 isn't big.
He's fishing in the UK as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's mainly concentrating on it. But I mean, you've probably got the wrong end of the stick here. I'm not taking anything away from what he's doing or his beliefs. But like I said, a very large carp in this country in some waters might be £35.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, agree with you. I mean, Cornwall. Obviously, I used to live there. I don't now.
Yeah.
Luckily.
You know.
Case in point, a mid-30 is fucking monstrous in Cornwall, even today. There are 40s. Yes, I know there are.
But, you know, and at the same time, I think the ideas that I've got, they may well not hold water on some of these mega waters where you've got loads of carp, they're £30 plus, and they're all 10 years old or less. Because they're a different animal. Yeah, they're a different animal.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I couldn't agree more. So, like my testing, it's mostly done on gravel pits. So I could find a bait, I could tweak it, and it's like, yeah, working real fucking good. Who's to say that you take that to a real kind of silty old pit? Is it going to do the same, or is it going to be less effective? You just don't know, do you?
No, but I mean, don't necessarily mean that angle, Sam. What I mean is, you've got lots of strains of carp now that grow fast. I mean, they definitely grow faster than they used to. You know, historically, everyone talks about the leanies and that, but you got other strains of carp around at the same time, and generally a £20 fish. I mean, they supposedly grew quite quickly in Redmire, but nobody. I think it took them 20 years before they were a decent size. You know,
neglected. That was the point.
I think it took them about 20 years before they were what you'd call big. But it's in today's world, you're getting some carp at £40 at like 9 years old and stuff like
that. Yeah, I just don't. I wouldn't want to do that. I just wouldn't. That doesn't appeal to me in the slightest. I'm not knocking people. I'm not knocking it.
I mean, it's just the way fishing is now, isn't it? I mean, I prefer to fish for old fish, but now the theories I've got, they may hold up. I mean, nobody who has bait off me has gone on any of these mega waters. There's one lad who has bait off me who's in Grenville, and he doesn't fish an awful lot. He's fished Grenville for, I think he's had 10 tickets on there since 2007. So in 2007, I think the late record was £36. So Grenville was a different water than what it is now. Now he's had 168 fish out of Grenville and 10 tickets. And for how much fishing he does, that's pretty good, really. It's not bad. Now, with fish like that are seeing loads of bait and they've grown quickly, I don't think that some of my ideas would probably be supported as much as they would be if you went on somewhere where there was half a dozen fish and say the biggest one was £42, and then the smallest one out of the top half a dozen was £35, but they were 30 years old.
Yeah,
because they're a different creature, aren't they?
Yep, 100%.
They're a different, but at the same time, I do believe that carp with the potential to grow large are slightly different than carp that'll never get any bigger than, say, £25. I think I've said that on the podcast before, and I think they are different. I think that I've got an inkling that their amino acid requirements is different, which goes against everything that you see in all the published data, because a carp is a carp is a carp, according to all the published data that you'll read about nutrition and amino acid requirements. But have they ever done any studies of large old carp? No, they haven't. They're always doing them. They're always doing them with small. They're always doing them with small fish.
Have you heard John Bates? John Baker came on our podcast, and he was saying about the receptors in carp changing as they age, getting more acute. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah. I think I might have listened to that. And one thing that I might have mentioned this on the last podcast, because the carp and most animals have got the ability to upregulate genes depending on the environmental conditions, then I'm 100% convinced that certain receptors in carp of varying ages, and one carp that's, say, 5 years old, it might have 5% of X receptor, but then in another one that's 25 years old, it might have 15% of X receptor. So it's a similar sort of thing that John Baker's saying. But I've looked at it from the angle of why they're attracted to why different fish seem to be attracted more to different things than others. I mean, I know what John said. He said the receptors become more acute as they get older, so they're more in tune with the dietary needs and stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily. Yeah, I sort of agree with it, but I don't. I mean, it's a massive subject that I'd have to get real deep into to explain exactly what I'm saying to you. But in a way, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I definitely think that carps. I mean, I'm 100% convinced that a carp's receptors can change dependent on the environment that it lives in as well.
That's what I was gonna. That's literally what I was just about to come on to. How much do you think environment factors into this?
Yeah, massively. That's why. Well, I think we spoke about this before. There's a transport molecule that I spoke about before, PepT1. It's ubiquitous. It's found in everything. So it's a protein transport molecule in the gastrointestinal tract. So it's in the carp's gut. Now, if a carp lives in an environment where protein's deficient, then it's a proven fact that it can upregulate the expression of this gene for this molecule, so it can end up with twice as many of these transporter molecules as what it'd have if it was in an environment where protein was abundant. And the simple reason why it does it's so it can extract more protein out of everything it eats. So it's getting more nutrition. So basically, because it's in an environment where it's struggling to find all its nutritional requirements, it can wring out more nutrition out of what it eats, and that's a scientific fact. That happens.
Yeah, that happens with a lot of animals, though, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
But,
sorry, go on.
But I also think that happens with receptors on the outside of its body as well. So, for instance, like we're just talking about. I mean, just call it receptor X. Say in a water where a carp's not struggling to find whatever that's looking for, it's got like 5% receptor X. But then in a water where that receptor is responsive to something, I mean, we could even just say something general like an amino acid, which is, I mean, it's a bit too general, but then it could upregulate it, so it's got 10% of them, so it's more acutely aware of the presence of that particular thing.
Mm. So in terms of flavor, I know you haven't dived too deep into flavors, and I know you're more on the nutritional side of things.
No, I'm not. I mean, that's a massive misconception with me. People think I'm just. I don't even believe in the HMV theory anymore. I don't profile any bait. The last two baits I've come up with, I've not even bothered about anything to do with nutrition. I mean, I've made them I've done the rudimentary calculations, but I ain't gone deep into deep into it like I ain't gone deep into it like I would have done, say, 15 years ago.
No, but I mean, since you first came, I mean, we've spoke to each other a lot on the phone in between. Sure, short calls here and there, some short, some long. You've never like spoken of you passionately talk about different ingredients and the nutritional side of carp. I don't think you've ever spoke to me about carp flavors or anything like that. So I don't think that's as much of a passion of yours, is it?
Well, we spoke a lot about essential oils, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, we have actually. We actually have.
The reason why I have done plenty of research and plenty of work with attractors, as we'll call them. But the reason why don't go overboard with it is because, without sounding condescending to anybody else, once you understand the basics of attraction, you know what you're looking for, and that's it.
Yeah, but and I agree, and same with flavors. So
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
But
at the same time,
sorry, go on.
But at the same time, there's a lot more to some flavors than others.
100%. Yeah, and I've said this a few times, but if you break down the most efficient flavors, there are common themes. There's certain things that those flavors are made up of. You might not ever think of it. Squid and octopus, you wouldn't necessarily associate with, say, thyme or anything like that, but it's in there, and it plays an active role.
Yeah.
There's things that you see patterns emerge, don't you? If you can actually get hold of the actual blend, the actual makeup, the recipe of these flavors, and then you look at the most effective ones, you definitely see patterns there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I have read stuff about that. I mean, I used to talk to Bob when he was alive at Campbell's, and I will actually say that I was on the phone to him once. I am going to big myself up here, but he actually turned around to me once on the phone and said, "You do actually sound like you know what you're talking about, you know." And I just started laughing. I said, "Well, I've been doing this quite a long time, Bob, so I know a bit about things." And we used to have some good discussions. Yeah, I mean, he was a great bloke. He really was a great bloke. He was. Yeah. And there was nothing he didn't know. There was nothing he didn't know about. I mean, he didn't know like about it from the attraction point of view, because he wasn't an angler. But there was nothing he didn't know about compositions and what you could do to get this sort of outcome. And he was a fascinating bloke to talk to. He was.
Yeah. Anyway, what I was getting to is over flavoring baits, older, bigger fish. Do you think people are missing a trick by using strong hook baits with lots of flavoring?
They all work, don't they? I mean, we did go down this avenue before, but the scene's a bit crazy now. It's a bit. I mean, I know you're selling hook baits, but the scene's a lot. I mean, the scene's a little bit crazy for hook baits now. It's too much for me. It's insanity.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you've got people in Frank Warwick's camp who, I mean, obviously he catches a lot. Who he will really, what I would class, over flavor a hook bait. Catches enough fucking fish, doesn't he? And then you've got people in John Baker's camp who sells flavors, and he's very much like less is more.
Yeah. I mean,
there's no right or wrong answer, is there?
There isn't. I mean, it's as they say, it takes all sorts, and you can't argue with what people catch. But as I say, a lot of it comes back to this rudimentary understanding of attraction, and that's what it comes back to.
Yeah, it's just specifically the like literally today. Actually, it's the overdoing of the flavors that I was sort of talking about.
Well, I mean, I can remember the first attract hook baits that I ever made, because we used to use when I first started making bait, seriously, which was it's about 1994 when I actually converted to boilies. I'd used them before, and I'd made boilies 4 years before that. It wasn't till 1994 that I became convinced that boilies were a good bait. Now, the hook baits that we used to make would always be made out of the paste. So you'd be rolling your bait, you put a little bit of paste to one side, and then after you finish rolling your bait, you'd get your polystyrene balls or your cork balls, and that was your hook baits. That was your pop-ups. Now, this overflavouring thing, it's nothing new, because when I used to make them, so I'd take the paste, and then let's say, for instance, the recipe for the bait that I was making was 2 ml of one liquid, one flavour, if you like, 2 ml of another. So it's 4 ml per 6 eggs. So it's not massive. It's not overdoing anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I'd take that paste and make the hook baits. But then 90% of the time, I would put a glug of minamino in there, a glug of whatever fish oil I was using, a couple of mil of flavour, and that would be your hook baits then. So we were boosting hook baits then. We were boosting hook baits nearly 30 years ago. Well, I was. And we used to catch on them. But we also used to catch plenty just on the bottom baits, where the attraction wasn't boosted up. And I didn't really notice any difference in the catch rates, but we just, for some reason, we used to boost them pop-ups up. I mean, we'd air dry them, so that was one of the reasons why we used to think, yeah, we'll give them a little boost, because we'd roll them, cook them, air dry them for 5 days till they went hard, and then whack them in the pot and just give them a little coat over with the liquids, and then that'd be your hook baits done then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. And obviously you can overflavor them with some things are going to work better at higher levels than others, aren't they? I mean, I don't think the hook baits that I sell, they're not overflavored by any stretch of the imagination, but they're strong. A guy messaged us today. He's a good angler. He's caught some insane fish recently. I won't mention him because he won't thank me for that. But he caught his PB, I think it was today or last night, with one of our Warlock pop-ups, which are quite strong, fishy style pop-up. And he sprayed it with our Choco Stim, which is a bait spray, which for a long time I just didn't buy into the bait sprays. Anyway, basically, he's got this ball of conflicting flavors at high levels and caught a very old sought after carp with it. And to me, like even me, and I'm selling this stuff, that just seemed like it like boggles my mind a little bit. I wouldn't, if I was targeting that carp, I wouldn't be going down that route at all. But yeah, it still produces the fish. So I suppose we're never going to know.
Well, the thing is, though, for me, that just says one thing. That just says one thing, that whatever you've put in the liquids and the pop-ups, it's been constructed properly, it's attractive, and you just basically, you've got a grasp of the fundamentals of attraction, and that just shows you that that's all it's down to. That's all it's down to.
Yeah.
Because,
I
mean, I can remember lads. I can remember some lads. I mean, like I say, the very first I attract hook baits I ever made, it was 18 years ago, and I used to put 10 mil of flavour in per egg. 10 mil. Put loads of fish on them. 10 mil per egg.
Yeah.
But then when I started getting a bit more into it, then there was other lads telling me they're using 20 mil of certain flavours, 20 mil per egg. And it sounds sky high, but you just catch plenty of fish.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? It really does. I mean,
it just shows you as well, though, how much that we could be overthinking it all.
Yeah.
My mate's just gone fishing this week, over on Pride of Derby, and he's gone on there's two pits there that are on the premium ticket. One's a bit easier than the other one. One's 12 acres, one's 18 acres. And he's gone on, and he's got hook baits on his rigs from the last time when he went fishing, which was probably 2 weeks before. And one of them's one of my Mulberry and Cream pop-ups, a fluoro, a bright white pop-up. Yeah. So he's had it in the water. He's had it in the water for however long on his last session, probably 48 hours. Yeah. Not taking it off his rig, rocked up 2 or 3 weeks later, cast it out without doing anything to it whatsoever, caught a fish. On one water that I used to fish, it was the first weedy water. Well, it's the first weedy water that I fished a bit. And I used to do an overnighter during the week. And if the hook bait didn't come off and it was still on the rig when because I was catching, when I went back, say 3 days later, I used to cast it out, caught loads of fish like that. And yeah, and I'll be honest with you, you can actually smell the hook baits and you think, doesn't really smell much at all now. But we're not a carp, are we?
No, I mean, everyone hails the ability of citric acid to catch carp. Doesn't smell of much, does it? Tastes of a lot.
Doesn't smell of anything. Yeah, it does.
No, put it on your tongue though. You know it's there. Don't
tastes
you?
like tastes like Tangtastics, don't it? Haribo's. Yeah. That's all that's on them, citric acid. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is though, because of how liquid flavors, well, I mean, you obviously dedicating a lot of efforts to flavors and stuff, but because of the fundamentals of how most, I say most because not all of them work like this, most liquid flavors work on the ionization process.
Yeah.
Then it shows you that you don't need an awful lot of it to be in there to be ionizing still. So, you know, I can remember Tim Paisley, one good thing he did say when he was trying to explain ionization was like thinking about a battery, you know, the longer it's used for, it drains down. And that's, I suppose, a good analogy for our liquid flavors working. But I think you'd be surprised that you'll still be getting ionization off very, very low levels of remnants of attractors that are left in a bait that's even been out for 48 hours or even longer, you know.
Yeah, if the baits are if the flavor is its sole function is ionization, which I think, to be honest, most flavors out there, you switch them one for the other, it's going to make no difference from the bait because it is just the ionization that it's providing, right? Maybe some pH change as well.
But like you say, not all flavors are working just on ionization.
Absolutely not. No, totally agree.
You know, like your squid and octopus isn't really working on ionization. Well, they're all working. Well, actually, technically speaking, we are a little bit wrong because even amino acid attraction and stuff is based on ionization, but it's all a little bit different. Yeah, it's all a little bit different than like taking an acidic attractor. I mean, some of them some flavors are working on the taste, and some of them have even got molecules that are specific for certain receptors and stuff. So it's a lot more. It's a lot more in depth than what you would believe with what some people say.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. I mean, obviously we've gone down some rabbit holes. The other thing that we wanted to really touch upon was, and we have sort of touched on it, is targeting the bigger carp. Is there anything that you're doing or you're helping your? Because I mean, you have a lot of people using your bait, don't you? And I'm sure you have some sort of core group of testers, which even I do now, which is fucking amazing because it's like extra time on the bank. It's a luxury, mate. But
yeah,
is there anything you're doing or your guys are doing to try and target the bigger carp?
I mean, this is another massive subject, isn't it? I mean, I can say whatever I want, can't I? But you've got to validate what you're saying. I mean, I've been carp fishing a long time. I don't drive a car, which is a big downer for fishing. Like, it's amazing I've ever caught anything really because I rely on lifts. You know, but I've caught the biggest fish out quite a lot of lakes. Now, you know, I don't really think so you can really talk about it unless you've caught a few, because otherwise you're just saying stuff, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're just saying stuff.
100%.
You know, I mean, I think since 2005, I think I've caught the biggest fish out of 11 different waters. But they can range massively in size. You know, depends where you're fishing. Depends where you're fishing. You know, some of them might be like scraper 20s, and the biggest one's like 41 pound. But from my personal journey in fishing, I think there's loads of things that you can do if you're after the big fish. There's lots of things you can do. I mean, it's not all bait related, obviously. I'm 100% convinced that there's certain things that you can put into bait that's going to catch on most of the waters, the older fish, the bigger fish, but not necessarily everywhere nowadays. Because, like I say, you've got these super waters now where you've got massive stocks of big fish.
And they're like 15 years old.
And they're not very old.
Yeah.
They're not very old.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, 15's even pretty old now. Well,
it's not though, is it? 15, that's a young fish. You know,
it's the young fish. It's realistically speaking, it's a young fish, but I mean, there was a big fish. I mean, I won't name the water or anything because I don't want to. I mean, it was a lovely fish, and I can remember seeing this fish when it first got caught over 40 pound, and I was actually astounded when I read it was only 7 years old.
Jeez,
it's quite a famous fish. A lot of the big names have caught it. It was a real nice fish as well. It went 40 after about 7 years. I think it was the fastest ever recorded 40. I think it got stocked at £4.
Which fish is this? What is it?
I don't really want to name it because I don't want to talk about the water,
Okay.
just in case they're a bit funny about it. But anyway, I can tell you off air, and then you can.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was stocked at £4, and it was like £40 by the time it was 7 years old. Like, I just couldn't believe it when I read it. I thought, Jesus, that's insane. But it was a nice enough fish, and I knew a couple of lads. Well, one lad who's had a bit of bait off me, and another lad who follows me on Instagram, and they both fished this water. And it died this year. And I thought to myself, that fish was only about 12 years old when I think it was about 12, maybe 15 years old when it died. And I just thought, this just ain't like carp fishing when I first started. Like, by the time they were 15, they might just be getting to about £30 if they're lucky, like, you know.
If that.
Well, yeah, if that.
£1 a year average, that's a lot. That's a lot of weight gain.
The first water I fished, seriously, for carp, the carp was stocked in 1958, and I don't think it did its first 20 till the 80s.
Yeah. That's Cornwall all over. That kind of slow growth rate. I like that.
Yeah.
I really like it. Yeah.
But I mean, I think a lot of it is a reflection of how much more bait goes in a lot of lakes now as well, because nutrition is obviously the most important thing. Well, I say the most important thing. It's very important for growth, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, or just a fucking abundance of
natural food.
It all comes back to nutrition. It all comes back to nutrition.
Of course it does, because what people forget, and I'm 100% convinced that my bait's done this on some lakes, it enriches the environment. Bait is fertilizer for the lake. Yeah.
Yes.
I think Ben Penninger talked about it when he came on, saying that although his pellets break down fast and they're vegetable based, they're enriching the environment because all the diatoms and everything all increase in the water, so the natural food becomes more abundant when you put those feed bait in there.
Yeah, because the thing is, when we put bait in the water, we're not just feeding the carp and the the tench and the bream. We're feeding all the little critters in there as well. We are affecting. We're affecting the ecology of the lake, aren't we? Everything plays into everything else.
You are fertilizing the lake, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ben had, just speaking of Ben, he had a theory on gut length, depending on what juvenile carp had been brought up on. So like fish meals versus, say, plant-based meals. Do you have any? And he didn't draw any hard or fast things. It was just a theory he had. It was like a thought process that he shared. I don't know if it was on air or off air. I can't remember. But have you got any thought process on that?
Can't remember that being on the podcast. I mean,
we've spoke off there. Yeah, but
yeah, I did only listen to the podcast once though, but I did enjoy that podcast. I thought it was quite good.
I like speaking to Ben. He's very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
His stuff is very interesting. He's got a product actually, G-Force, his garlic liquid he gets specially made for him.
Well, he's got that. He's got the naturopath, hasn't he? That's
yes. Mm-hmm.
There's like a medication for getting rid of argulis, and I do believe. I mean, I've always known that garlic is antiparasitic, but after I listened to his podcast, I did a bit more digging because I think Ben said that although garlic is an antiparasitic, the active component that deters the parasites is far more potent if it's in the oil that's extracted before it's all mashed up. Because garlic's a funny one because you only get the smells and stuff off it from the volatiles when they've all been smashed up and some of the cells have been broken.
Yeah.
The
allicin.
That's it. Yeah. But I do believe that he is onto something with that Natropal because I've spoken to a few lake owners and they have used it and they've all said it has virtually eradicated the argulis in the lake. They can be a big problem. Argulis a big problem.
Oh yeah. These lakes where they show a lot, they bosh out a lot. Generally, there's an argulis problem. That's why they're jumping out.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, not always. I don't think, but I mean, the argulis can be a big problem. Because they're very very. They irritate the fish badly, and the fish can rub themselves up and make a real mess of themselves with the argulis. And then you've got secondary infections happening and all sorts, and it's bad news, man. I mean, that water that I spoke about, that first water I ever seriously fished for carp, that was stocked in 1958. When I first joined in 1995, I mean, it's a long time ago, so you've got to put it in perspective. There was probably 2020s in there, which now people just go 2020s. I mean, it had done a 39 pounder, but it was carrying spawn. But in Stoke-on-Trent, where I live, that was everybody wanted to get in that water. I mean, you got to remember it's 27 years ago. So, they were big fish then. That was like a real good water with 20 pounds, and especially old fish like that as well. But what happened there is, when I first fished it, that first 2 years, 95 and 96, it was quite a busy lake. And then by 1997, for some reason, it just started getting quiet. There was a lot less bait going in. And then by the year 2000, the condition of the fish had started deteriorating. They were losing weight. There's argulis and stuff. And that's when I think a lot of the originals perished then. I mean, I didn't fish it much, but it was just, I went back on there a few years later because I'd always kept the ticket, and it was just a different lake. But that just shows you the importance of the nutrition as well, because there's a lot less food going in there.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? But I mean, back to Ben's product. He's got his Natropal. He's got the G-Force liquid as well, which is like garlic based, obviously, which is a lot stronger than the Natropal. But that's an interesting product. I don't know if you've ever looked at it or used it. I've got loads here. I can send you some if you want.
Yeah. What is that, a liquid then, is it?
So, yeah, it's a liquid. It's something he gets. It's exclusive to him. He gets made for himself. It's in the Natropal, but obviously diluted into
the carrier oil.
Which I don't know if I can name, but a certain carrier oil which diluted into. I think that's basically it. But it works.
He probably uses rapeseed oil to guess. I would say in that Natropal. I would guess he uses that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say or not, so I won't comment on it. But yeah, the actual concentrate liquid, man, that has got some mileage in it. If you mix it with certain things, that is interesting stuff. Very interesting. He should bring out a bait with that in, like a hook bait with I mean, I know he does. I think it's called Smart Mix pellets, which is very good. That has the garlic in, but
I mean,
interesting. Garlic's an interesting one, I think.
Yeah, I rate garlic massively. I do use powdered garlic. There's garlic in a couple of my baits. Yeah, I mean, I do rate it massively. I mean, I do hear some people say that they don't think it's any good, but I think I think it's very good garlic.
See,
I even think the essential oil is good as well, and some people don't rate that either. But
that's
I
what I
do.
was going to ask you. You're an essential oil man. What do you think of the garlic essential oil? And is there a
Yeah, I think it's
particular
good.
type you like?
I think it's good. Well, I mean, I don't go into it as much as you do, Sam, with looking for the best one on the market and all the rest of it. If I get one and it works, then I'm happy with it, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. So is garlic essential oil in one of your baits, or just use the powder?
Uh, I just use it. That's just how I use it. And that's it. I mean, it's like Trenton, another one of the local waters. There's lads going on there. I mean, and on a national scale, it's nothing like. But there's fish in there to £35 now, and there's quite a few 30s. It's 70 acres. I mean, I love that water because I fished it since I was a kid. And the lads who are just going on there with my baits with the garlic, and they're embarrassing the rest of the lake. To be honest with you, I know you shouldn't say, but they are. I mean, they've caught that many fish this year. It's unbelievable.
Mm.
You know, and it's not an easy lake anymore. That it's not rock hard because there's a few hundred fish in there, but it's 70 acres, so you've got to make sure you're on them. You know, you can't just rock up on there and fling things out and think you're getting catch because it's not happening. Like,
Yeah. What do you think is the future of bait formulation?
well, it looks like it's hook baits to me because everybody's making them. Everybody's making them, mate.
There are so many hook bait. I know what you're picking up on. There is a lot of hook bait companies out there, aren't there?
Yeah, the thing is, the way I look at it is, I mean, a young lad came and got some bait off me the other week. He's never had any bait off me before, and we were just chatting, and I said, "Oh, I suppose you're hook bait mad, are you?" He says, "Yeah, I like the hook baits, the special hook baits and that." I said, "Well, I said if someone can make a good bait, like this bag of bait here, I'm giving you." Why would you think you can get anything what's any better? Like, if you think that bait's any good, why do you need anything other than say the matching hook baits to that? What I just don't get it really. Don't get me wrong. I have gone on waters where bright hook baits will outfish and match that hook bait, and even all the time, but sometimes at different times of the year. But I mean, all my hook baits that I make. And I'm even getting back to making my own fluoros now because I was having it made for me for 2 years, but I'm not entirely happy with them, to be truthful with you. It never sat well with me selling something that I didn't actually make. So in the end, I've decided I'm back to making my own impact pop-ups, as you call them, whatever.
Yeah, good man.
The bright ones. It never sat with me. One reason why it never sat with me properly is because the chap had never disclosed to me what levels he was putting citric acid in, which I said to him, "Well, do you think I don't know what it's effective at like?" And he said, "Well, I can't tell you what I'm using it at." And I thought, well, I said, "All right, then I'll buy some off you." Because it was always a pain in the arse doing the bright ones because I've got a busy little unit where I'm making loads of bait. So you've got to have everything clean. It's a pain in the arse, as you know. You've got everything. I mean, it's like you. I bet you don't roll hook baits at the same time as you're rolling bait. You just can't do it.
Oh, absolutely, mate. No, it's one day, so it's like we're rolling tree fruit that day. That is it. Like nothing else can be rolled.
Everything's got to be spotless clean, hasn't it?
100%. Yeah.
But anyway, it never sat well with me. And the other thing was when I bought some of these hook baits off in these blanks. And they got a few things in them. So there's a couple of other powders that weren't in them. So I knew I could solubilize them and get them in there. So I thought, well, they're going to be near as damn it sort of thing. But the very first time I got any, I did actually take them on a very, very easy water. I mean, it was freezing cold though as well. It was the end of November. It was freezing. But my hook baits were, my pop-ups, my bright ones that I'd already rolled, they did outfish these other ones. So even straight away, I thought, I thought I'm not 100% sure on this. But to be fair, to the bloke who I was having them off. They were decent enough. The buoyancy of them was good, and the durability was good. And the lads have caught loads on them. I mean, I don't use bright hook baits that much. And the lads have caught loads, and they've caught some big fish. I mean, they've caught that big in the other park in Stoke a few times. And that's a big fish for the area, 35 pound. But yeah, I just decided to go back rolling them myself. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse cleaning everything off all the time, but I'll just set aside days for doing them, so I haven't got it intermingling with days rolling bait.
Yeah, you got to roll them yourself. I mean, the thing is, there's so much you can do with a hook bait that you can't with a feed bait, and vice versa. There's so much you can do with a feed bait you can't with a hook bait. I think that's the beauty of them. But I mean, okay, yes, I sell hook baits. I don't need to sell hook baits. Like I don't make any money from it. By the time I have to pay for the website and shit, you just don't, mate.
I think the bait with you, what you're doing is just a bit of an hobby. What's turned into something what can just sort of pay for itself, if you like.
100%.
You've got your main thing that you do for a living. You know, your nutrition stuff, what you do, and then obviously I think you just took the angle with the bait.
Yeah.
If it pays for your hobby sort of thing, then It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a passion for you, isn't it? The same as just for all of us who are interested in bait.
Yeah, I freaking love bait. I get immersed in it. It's to be honest, it's more of a hobby to me than angling itself. Like, I know that sounds odd, but it just is. I absolutely fucking love bait.
There's been times with me, mate, where I haven't even been that bothered about going fishing because I've been that immersed in what I'm doing with bait.
Yeah. But you have to go out and test it, don't you? Or you have to have people testing it for
you. Yeah. I mean, I've generally always tested everything. I've always generally been the first person who'll test anything. I have had a couple of things where I haven't bothered with. I mean, that Frankie mix that I sell now, I didn't really test that. I just let the lads test it. But I was 100% sure that was going to be a real good bait anyway before I even give it to anybody. I just knew it was going to be a very good bait.
But how amazing is it? Like formulating a bait, maybe testing it a bit yourself, and then sending it out to, probably a small group of really good anglers, having them test it for you. So it's like they're working whilst you're not. That is such an amazing feeling for me. And it's fairly new to me. Obviously, I haven't been selling bait anywhere near as long as you. I've been rolling it for a long time, but having field tests and stuff, it's a luxury, right? Because these people are out there testing your theories, and that's an amazing thing. Gives you more power, doesn't it? And more scope to get better.
Yeah, you've got to trust them, though, haven't you? It's hard.
You need the right people.
I mean, the bait game's a weird game, mate. I mean, it's very weird. I've had some good anglers who've come to me on the strength of the podcasts I've done with you, but they haven't lasted. People are weird, mate. I mean, I've had people saying my bait's the best bait they've ever used, but they won't use it anymore because they don't sort of gel with me, kind of thing. But it's just a funny business. It's a weird business. I've been doing it quite a long time now, and it's a funny game.
Yeah, bait is like people's diets. Like they'll get like subscribed to a certain bait or a certain diet, and then they seem very. It's like almost a fucking religion to them,
Yeah.
It's an odd world, very odd.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many people doing it as well now. I mean, the bait world. There's lots of people doing it, loads of people doing it. But I mean, it's like with the hook baits, though. I mean, I do look at. I have a look at some pages for hook baits and stuff, and I see some of them. They've got like 20 things that they're supposedly putting in these hook baits, and I'm thinking to myself, I mean, what levels are you putting them in? Are you actually putting them in at any level that's going to be a factor in the success of the hook baits? And I think I'm just looking at the stuff and thinking it wouldn't pop up. That wouldn't even make a pop up.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, more is not better. Like, I certainly don't add in like as much good, quote unquote good shit as I can. Because things conflict with one another, don't they? And you design a bait, you want it to go down a certain avenue, and you can't do that by just adding in everything that has a proven track record. Generally, you're not going to make the
No,
best bait you can do by doing that. It doesn't work like
no,
that.
no, definitely not. Like I say, I mean, I see some of these lists of things that they're putting in, and I just think, half of them can't even be in there at any level worth even putting in. So I just don't understand it myself.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a pop up, because there's only so much you can put in there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, yeah. For buoyancy, you're on about, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you're relying on your refined milks for the buoyancy. Like they will get weighed down. They'll get hampered down. As you say, there's only so much you can do. But to be fair, it's not that much of an issue because there's only so much you need to do. Again, you want to go down a certain avenue. Yes, have it backed up by X, Y, and Z, but I think there should be certain themes of baits, like it's working off of X or it's working off of Y. I don't think it should work off of X, Y, and Z necessarily. I don't think that makes the most effective bait.
No, I mean, like you say, it's like the old complementary system for making a feed bait, if you like. So if you're using certain things in your bait in powder form, you should be using certain liquids to complement what you're doing with the powders. And I suppose that's the way that you can design a nip bait as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of avenues you can go down, isn't there? I mean, it's fucking never ending. And in a large part, that is what makes it so compelling, isn't it? Because there is so many fucking variables. You're never gonna no one will ever master the bait game. And I mean, a hell of a lot about bait, far more than most people alive. But you're never going to complete it. You're never going to know everything there is to know about bait. I'm sure you'll agree with that.
That's the beauty of it. You could spend 10 lifetimes doing this.
Yeah.
And you could come up with, I mean, I'm happy with all the baits that I sell, or I wouldn't be selling them. But you could come up with I mean, Jeff Bowers sells quite a lot of different baits, and I bet you any money they're all decent. I bet you any money they're all decent catches. It just shows you how many different permutations there is.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to misquote anything, but he must sell over 10 different types of baits, right?
Oh, more than that. He sells more than 10 different baits.
Yeah, I'm being conservative. What, 15, 20? I don't know.
Must be 15, 20 at least. 20, yeah. I reckon 20, But he's been doing it a long time. I think what happens with Jeff is, I think he does similar to what I sort of have done. I mean, I don't sell that many, nowhere near, but if he gets something new and he likes it, he'll make a bait for it. So when you've been doing it as long as him, that means you make quite a few baits,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's probably people that it must be hard for him to discontinue a bait if he's got, I mean, so many people use his baits. Yeah. How are you going to tell him, oh, sorry, not doing that one anymore, not doing that one anymore? He has to keep them on, doesn't he?
Yeah, there'll be people who'll be using baits of his like that over 20 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like the bait I sell the most of, the Super Orange. I mean, that's a 15-year-old bait now. And I still sell more of that bait than anything else.
Yeah. Here's a silly question for you, which is a bit juvenile, really. But if you had to use one bait, I like juvenile, mate. I'm quite mature. If you had to use one bait, doesn't have to be a boilie, one bait forevermore. It's the only bait you can use. What would you pick and why?
Probably would say a boilie.
Yeah. What boilie then?
I'd probably,
What boilie?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. A good bait has peanuts, mate. And they are a good bait, peanuts are, but you can't use them everywhere, can you? I mean, I've never been a tiger nut man. I've never used tiger nuts, see.
You never used tiger nuts?
Not really, no. I think I've only ever used tiger nuts about 3 times as long as I've been carp fishing.
Wow.
Yeah, I've used peanuts a bit.
Peanuts are. Yeah, I love peanuts. Very good.
I like sweet corn as well, but at the same time, I think you'd have to be a little bit mad to say that he wanted that the only bait he ever used would be sweet corn, because it's just a nightmare, isn't it? If you got used to it.
Species, yeah.
It's just a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, don't really think I'd ever want to have to use one bait forever, mate. Would you?
No, I wouldn't.
Because it's like you find that big and up the corner sucking snail eggs off the pads, like, and you think to yourself, "Oh, that's just prime for a piece of bread, that isn't it?" So you get a piece of bread on that one, wouldn't you? Or you find one in the edge, you just think, "Oh, an handful of sweet corn will do for that," and you put a handful of sweet corn in, and you catch that. So yeah, I mean, as good as boilies are, they're not always the best bait, are they? Let's be honest.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that there ain't many fish swimming that you won't catch on a boilie at some point.
And more to the point, you can. Okay, so maybe they might be, scarfing down zebra mussels. They might be, quote unquote, preoccupied with certain things, Daphnia or something. But if you have a very good quality boilie, you can turn them, and over time, okay, maybe not when you first find them, but over time you can get them hooked, no pun intended. You can get them on that boilie, can't you? You can get them eating it regularly with enthusiasm.
Well, I mean, that's like when we're starting to talk about targeting big fish, because I've fished for quite a long time, and I've fished fairly a few different waters, but things have changed an hell of a lot in the time period that I've been carp fishing. When I say big carp, when I say that, I'm referring to like the big carp in the waters that I fish for. So they might only be ranging from 20. I mean, I've fished for big fish, like, fished over 40 pound. But things have changed an awful lot. It's like when you read about the old results that people used to get that used to back up the HMV theory, how they always used to catch these big ones quick on these HMV style boilies. And I can explain a lot of that away as well. And I've done that. And I've seen that. I've done that in a few waters. And 90% of the time, it's always in the similar sort of scenario. It's always in the similar sort of scenario. And it's always in the same sort of scenario how people would have been doing it 40 years ago. We could talk about that, really, because that's definitely something. And you can still do it today, but you won't find many waters where you can do it anymore. Because
expand on that a bit.
Well, what I've noticed over the years, if you go on a water, and like I say, it's very rare that you'll do it today, and you've got some, let's say, we'll just call them big fish. Right? We won't call, we'll just say the big fish in the lake, the fish that are the biggest ones in the lake. Yeah. Now, if you go on a water, I've always found, and there's not a great deal of bait going in there. So I suppose it might be a reasonably rich water, but it's usually a bit more marked the outcome is if it's not overly rich. But if there isn't a load of bait going in, and you start going on there with some quality bait, say a good fish meal, I've always found that you'll catch, if there isn't loads of bait going in, you'll catch the big fish quite quickly. And you generally do that on most places if you go on with a good quality bait. But how many waters can you find nowadays with any big fish, and where's all anybody fishing?
Few and far between.
There ain't many, is there?
No.
And I think why the outcome of that always happens is because I think generally it's a free meal for them, so they get straight onto it. And I think generally the bigger fish, generally a little bit greedier, to be honest with you. I think they like the fact that they can find a lot of free food, and they just seem to turn onto that food source very quickly.
Well, they need to maintain their mass as well, don't they? So they need
exactly. I don't necessarily believe that all big fish are always the greediest ones in the lake, but a lot of them are greedy. A lot of them a lot of them eat a lot, don't they? I mean, I've watched big fish feeding and stuff, and it's unbelievable how much they can eat.
I mean, yeah, but I'm sure there's these legends. A lot of it's bullshit, but I'm sure so I'm sure you have, and I have fish waters where you'll be up a tree, you will see a big fish, and it is big. It's got a big frame. It's got a good amount of meat on it, but it just does not get fucking caught. Now, whether it's eating angler's bait or not, but it's sucking and blowing in a different, who knows? But there are fish there that, I don't know, you could argue maybe they don't have quite the appetite that others do, but they still get big. They're still getting big somehow. And that must be food.
That's genetics, isn't it? That's genetics. But there's we'll talk about that. Well, I'll talk about another local water here to me. I won't give the name of it away because there's people fishing it in there. But there's big fish in there that definitely have not been caught. Maybe not even ever. Maybe never even caught. And they're not massive. When I say big, they're over 35 pounds. But I just believe that they just don't eat angler's bait, and they never will do. I just don't. I just think there's some fish that just do not eat angler's baits, and they just eat natural food all the time.
Quite agree with you. So are they spending most of their day sucking in these small food items that have small caloric value, or are they just have a very slow metabolism? What do you think's at play there?
Well, another water that I've fished, which is an interesting place. Well, it's a really interesting place. It's only a tiny place, Strawberry Fields in Kent. Now, it gets a bad press, but it's basically people don't know what they're talking about because I know all the history of that lake.
In Kent? I thought that was in Strawberry Fields.
It's in Kent, mate, Strawberry Fields, as I fished it.
It's not in Somerset, no?
No, it's in Strawberry Fields. It's in Kent. It's in Kent, mate.
Right.
It's in Kent, and pretty pally with Len. I've only fished it. How many times have I fished it? I think I've fished it 3 times, but it's a long way from here, from Stoke. And I've spoke to Lenny, who owns that lake, and he's a real old character. And the fish in there, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's an acre in size, mate. I mean, you just you won't even believe when I tell you how many fish there is in there.
Go on.
The first time I ever fished that lake, right, I knew there was some big fish in there. I think the big one had gone £60 then, and that was stocked at £4. I've seen the picture of it when it got stocked in 1996, I think it went in. £4. It's now £63. And I found out, like, I'd heard of it, and so I rung him up, tried to book on a session. So I've seen the pictures of these fish. And I thought, oh, there must only be. I knew it was small, so I thought, can't be any more than like 30 fish in there. So I rings him up and I'm chatting to him. So I says, how many fish is there in the lake? And when he told me there was 150 fish in the lake, I went,
what?
I went, 150 fish in the lake? And he said, yeah. He said, trust me, mate. He says, this is not an easy lake. And I thought, no chance. Right. I'm telling you now, right. There was 150 fish in that lake the first time I fished it. There's even more in there now. Yeah. And it did a fish, a new one that I think it was a sort of been caught before. That lake, right, has now got a £63 common in it. Another common that's just under 60. Another common that's done 57 that was spawned in the lake. It wasn't even stocked. A mirror that's done 53 that was stocked at about £4. There's about, I think there's 12 fish in there over £40, and then there's about another 200 carp in there. It's insane. By rights, they shouldn't even grow. And he doesn't feed them.
That's just fucking mind warping. I mean, does he definitely not feed them?
I am telling you now, right? It's one of the hardest waters I've ever fished. You see the fish all the time, which you would do because it's 1 acre. Well, the first time I ever fished it, in 2013, I had a 23.5 mirror which was a pretty rare fish. He told me it doesn't come out very often whatsoever. It's still in there, which hasn't grown much. I think it's about £28 now. And we were there for 5 days. And I think for the entire time that we were there, bearing in mind there was 100, I think he said there was 100, as I said, there was 120 or 150 fish in there. And there was only another 3 fish out for the whole time we were there.
Jeez.
And I spoke to lads on there who were fairly local, and they all said how tricky it was. And, it took them a fair long time to work out how to catch them from there. But it's no runs water. I mean, on paper, that just looks like a turkey shoot, doesn't it?
Mm.
But it's unbelievable. And he reckons that the big fish in there a lot of the time are feeding on small roach and stuff, small roach and rudd and perch and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because there's loads of them in there. There's loads of little tiny. I mean, there's big roach in there, big rudd and big perch, but there's plenty of fry in there.
But I mean, if there's a lot of big fish in there and they're just mostly eating fry, there must be a fuckload of fry in there. They're going to run out of fry, aren't they?
Sam, that place just bends your mind, mate, because you can't work out the science of any of it. Why the fish are massive, how they survive, why they don't get caught all the time. Honestly, mate, it's probably not your cup of tea, but I mean, it's weird fishing that just for the experience, because that is a tricky water, I'll tell you. I mean, in my book, somewhere that's tricky is somewhere where you're on the fish all the time, you can see him, but you can't catch him.
Yeah. You know the problem, though.
What's that?
They're not using the right type of hook bait.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Yeah, send Lenny a pot of your hook baits down and tell him go do a few hours
exactly,
on there.
mate. Problem solved. Problem solved.
Yeah. There's loads of people been on there, mate. I'm telling you now, it's a very tricky water, that place is.
Yeah, jokes aside, though, what a water to test. So, like, I think, I think the right hook bait can really make a difference. That's a perfect water to test that theory on, isn't it?
Well, the last person that went down there with my bait and caught, he caught 2 or 3, and he caught them all on single super orange match stats pop-ups. He didn't put any bait in whatsoever, and he caught all 3 on them.
Yeah, you sent me some of them, didn't you?
Yeah, they're a good hook bait, them, mate. I'd like £1 for every fish they've caught. I mean, they've caught a lot of the big fish that my bait's caught in this country. They have. Yeah, caught some big fish they have. Good hook bait.
I'd like to fish there, but it's just not the kind of fucking water that would do it for me. It sounds horrible, to be honest. Just a rammed small pond. It's not horrible.
It's not horrible. It's not horrible. What do you mean, ram with fish or ram with anglers?
Ram with fish. If it's an acre and there's 150 fish in there,
yeah. But Sam, listen though, if you're such a good angler and you can go on these sort of low stock waters and whatever and target these fish, which personally speaking, like from when I've done fishing like that on big waters, I always think they're easier catch than they are on small.
I agree with you. I agree.
Personally speaking, like I do. The biggest water I've fished much, 70 acres, Trentham. Yeah, there's a few hundred in there, but I certainly wouldn't call a few hundred fish in 70 acres rammed. So
that's not bad though. That's not too bad at all, to be fair.
It's not bad, but you can blank on there for a long time, mate, if you don't know where the fish are.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I fished loads of different types of waters. I've fished small waters with hardly any fish in, some waters with loads of fish in, small waters, and I don't necessarily have the opinion that these waters with like 20 fish in 20 acres are the hardest waters. Personally, like I don't believe that at all. It depends on a lot of factors, but I don't believe it.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables, isn't there? Do you know what we need to do? We need to. But what is strawberry fields? Is it like, do you book it for a week at a time, or is it like a syndicate?
No, you can. No, it's just day ticket. You can go down whenever you want. Just if we had I think he only lets five paying anglers on there at one time. He's got, I think, there's 6 swims. One swim he calls the bailiff swim, and it's very rare whenever I've been down there, he doesn't let people in that swim. Obviously, it's the bailiff swim, so he'll have I think he does let people in it, but I think whenever I've asked him, like I said, I've only fished it 3 times. I mean, one of the lads who has bait off me has been down a few times. He's never even had a bite. But most people who are no-fished it have never even had a bite.
Mm. We'll have to have a little social. We've never fished together. We've only met each other in the flesh once. We'll have to go down.
Yeah, we'll go Strawberry Fields.
I'd be up for it, mate. Pitch our fucking baits against each other. How about that? We'll do a podcast on it.
Hey, mate, I'm not joking you. That water blows your mind. I mean, everyone who I talk to, I talk to some people who've got lakes and stuff, and I've got friends who've got lakes, and nobody can actually believe anything about the statistics of that Strawberry Fields because it just blows your mind.
Can't fathom it. Yeah.
I mean, how they keep growing and maintaining the weight. I mean, it does see bait, but Jesus Christ, mate, that many fish and that many big fish in there, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously a very good strain. I mean, I think the reason why it gets a bad press is because the original stocking that he had, they were all imported from Holland. And I think he had one big fish. But that was dead within 10 years. So all the fish that are in there now have all grown to that weight in the lake. So for me, you know, I aren't much for fishing for fish that have been stocked at big weights. For me, like they're a legitimate target, and they're fairly old now. Them fish as well. You know, they're getting up to 30 years old. Well, they probably are about 30 years old.
Right. Yeah. Well, mate, it's those kind of things that are like, I don't know. It makes you think, well, fucking hell, perhaps you don't know it all. And you're absolutely right about the large waters that are low stocked. You just got to find those fish. Once you find those fish, you know, they're going to probably be quite turned on to a food source. They're going to be quite easy to catch compared to swarm water. I mean, you've fished home pool, haven't you? And I've fished there before.
Yeah. I blanked on there this year, Sam. That's the first time I've ever been. First time I've ever been
recently, have you?
We went in the early spring. We went in April. It was freezing, mate.
I thought it was sold. Dave sold it, right?
Yeah, it is sold. Yeah, but it's still open.
Ah, okay.
We went in early April, and I came out last in the draw, and it was freezing cold. And I'll be honest with you, all the fish were in that Hobbit swim.
Yeah.
And my mate was in the Hobbits, and he's probably the least experienced angler who was there. But he still had 3, so he was quite happy. He had 3 fish, and it was cold. It was freezing every night.
Is that terrapin still there?
I don't know. I can't remember seeing a terrapin in there.
A little terrapin always tearing around there when I fished it.
What was there?
Yeah. That it used to be in that. There's like a bush that jettisons out into the water in the top corner.
Well, on the Hobbits.
I do. Is the Hobbits? Say if you're on the
Hobbits is the big swim on own pool. The big swim, the bottom swim before you get to the next lake. So
like
if you're in
the end swim in the corner before you walk along the stalking bank.
No, not in there. Well, you aren't supposed to fish that far bank, are you? Did he used to let you fish on a syndicate? Did he?
I fished it. Yeah.
No, you aren't supposed to. You aren't supposed to fish. That's cheating. If you caught any from there, Sam, that's cheating. You can't count that.
No, I used to fish it. I fed him.
But no, the Hobbit swim. He used to let you go around there and bait up across that brook bank, as he called it.
Oh, you're right by the house, are you?
No. The Hobbits is the biggest swim. So you've got the end of the lake, and then you can see the day ticket lake, and it's the end swim. You've got the causeway swim, but we never really want anybody going that because it knackers that swim up.
Right. Okay. I think
the Hobbits.
If you stand covered in reeds, there's reeds to the left of it.
If you're standing in the shed, yeah. Then the Hobbits is the swim what's on the left-hand side on the end of the lake.
Oh, okay.
It's probably the best swim on the lake, really, that Hobbits is. Well, from what I've seen of it, it's a good swim.
Right. So you're in like the house. Say if the lake was in 2 halves, you're on the half of the house.
No. How can I be on the half of the house if I'm standing in the shed?
Because the shed is to the mate. Either that or I'm remembering it wrong. I thought the shed.
Were you pissed every time you went there?
Yeah, probably, mate. You know the little island, and then there's
Two
that. It's
islands.
like this
There's
big
two
bar
islands.
that the carp has to have to swim over to get over it, right?
A bar?
Yeah.
There's no bar, mate. There's no bar. Well, there is a bar, yeah, but it ain't a bar like that.
Right. So say, yeah, no, there is, mate. You know the island,
There's two islands, Sam.
the main island. Say if you were looking at the lake and the house was on your right. Yeah.
Are you standing on the lake and looking at it?
Standing on the lake. Let's say you're standing in the shed,
right? No. Listen, right. We'll walk down the lake, right? So you start at the house.
Yeah.
And then the first swim that you come to used to be a swim called the pork pie. That's not open anymore. So then your first swim is the gate swim. Yeah. So when you come through the gate, that's the gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you've got a swim next to that called the Willow, which I was in, which is shit because you're penned in between the gate and the next.
And there's
swim.
an island opposite that, right?
Well, then you get down, then you're on the island. Then the other swim is the shed, which is in between the two islands. And then the next swim is, well, there's a little swim there called the Bamboo. And then there's the main swim called the Hobbits. So in the Hobbits, you've got all that widest part of the lake to yourself.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a bar, but on that last island. Did you not know that? You must have known that.
There's a bar on the shed side of the last island, mate. But there ain't. If there's one the other side of it, I've never seen it because it's been covered in weed.
No, it's a pronounced bar. You walk across it easily, probably.
Yeah, you can from the shed. No, you can't, mate. There's no bar in there like that,
mate.
There's one you can. There isn't. Dave. I would know, mate, because I've been a few times and I spoke to Dave about the lake loads of times, and I've caught fish from a few swims on there. The only bar that's in there that I know about that you can walk across in waders because it's a silty lake is in the shed swim. And you can walk on the left-hand side of the shed swim. If you get in the water there on the reed bed, you can walk across on a rock-hard bottom there to the other side.
Yeah, that's what I'm on about.
But you can't. No, I said it's in wellies, mate. It sticks out of the water.
No, it doesn't. What do you mean it sticks out in the water?
Well, you said the bar sticks out of the water and you can walk across to wellies. I'd like to see wellies, mate. Where the wellies go up to your chest.
Well, the fuck. Okay, all right. Well, let's say you. All right, let's say you walked across it in shorts. What it's going to be? What, knee height?
It's a bit deeper than that. Mate.
I only fished it in winter, so maybe the water's lower. I don't know.
It's a bit deeper than that. If you go across 10 waders, it's probably about, I don't know. It's just past your waist, I would imagine.
No, mate. No.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. Trust me.
But is the water deeper either side of it?
You'll have to get Dave on, mate, who used to run the lake. He'll tell you.
I'll get Dave on. Yeah, but is the water's deeper either side it, right?
Yeah, not much though.
Well, so it's a bar.
It ain't a bar like you're talking about, mate. So as deep as your well is now.
Mate, I think it is. Anyway, I'm sure we're losing listeners right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's how I remember it. Look, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am.
No,
I'll dig out some photos. I'm sure I've got photos.
You're definitely wrong, mate. Because I've fished the Hobbit swim, I've fished the shed swim, I've fished the gate swim. Well, in fact, I've fished every swim on that lake. And there ain't no bar in there, mate, where you can watch as deep as your well is.
Yeah, see, I had that place to myself basically in winter.
In the winter, yeah.
Yeah, and I only did days. I barely fished it, to be honest with you, but I know it pretty well. Like it's not a big. It's a tiny fucking lake, isn't it?
Yeah, really? It's 1 acre. Yeah, it's tiny. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a nice little lake though. Shame it hasn't still got the same stock, but there's still a few nice fish in there.
Yeah.
Just a nice place to go for a social, and if you get a bite, it's a good chance. It's going to be over 20. You're unlucky if you catch one under 20.
Yeah. I mean, good sized fish there. Yeah, it's right next to that fucking river, isn't it? Which is a bit of a worry.
Well, right next to the brook. Yeah, I mean there's an otter fence on it, mate, but it's turned off now, I think.
Yeah, but that is not a proper otter fence. It's a low fence.
Yeah, it's not brilliant. It's not brilliant.
No, not at all. But I mean, there's I don't know. There's a certain charm of that place, isn't there?
It's a nice little place. Yeah, I mean, when that black eye was in there and that redfish, then it was a different place. I saw both of them fish as soon as I got there. They were big.
Well, Dave reckons the redfish is still in there.
Well, don't think he does. When I spoke to him, it hasn't been caught for a long time, mate.
No, I agree. Wow. Well, the last time I spoke to him again might be different times, but he said someone caught it. Well, someone caught a fish.
Somebody caught. I can remember when it was, mate, because I went twice that year when you joined in the winter. I went in 2020 twice, and he told us that somebody had a fish over 40, a mirror, but he never got the pictures. And he said, really, the only fish it could have been was the redfish. He says, but I haven't seen that fish for years, he said.
Yeah, you don't know, do you?
No, you don't. I mean, I got them feeding and they were proper having it. I was using that from Enzyme additive in my ground bait mix and a few other bits and bobs. I was using a few maggots as well, to be honest with you. A bit of corn and that, a few broken boilies. And I got them troughing big time over that far bank where you aren't supposed to fish from, but you actually go around there. And I'm 100% convinced I saw a couple of fish that Dave thought were dead. So who knows? I don't know. But since Billy's had it, the new owner, it's just the same fish that keep coming out all the time. So it makes you wonder what's left in there.
Yeah, it's odd. It's definitely not a pushover. I don't think it's a hard lake by any means.
No, because it's that small. I mean, if you've got a couple of days, especially if you've got it to yourself as well, you should catch something. But it's one of them, like I said to you before, even on somewhere that small. I mean, he's put a few fish in now, so I think there's more fish in there now. I think there's over 30 fish in there now because there never used to be that many in there. Even on places like that, you don't go on and catch every time you go on there. If you've only got a night or whatever, you won't go on and catch every time you go on there. But it certainly isn't rock hard, is it?
No. So what is it now? Is it still sort of holiday rental and then?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. Nothing's changed. It's exactly the same. Still has the winter syndicate on there, and then it's just session booking for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Right, mate. We've been at this for a while. I feel like we could go down many rabbit holes. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on this episode?
No, not really. Like I say to you, I was just happy come on, have a bit of a relaxed chat. We haven't really covered what we wanted to cover, really, but it's just gone down that many different avenues. But yeah, I mean, we've had a chat. How long have we been at it for now? 3 hours nearly.
Well, it's 10 o'clock. We started at what, 7:30?
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Yeah, been doing a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, mate, you got to come back on if you're up for it, and we'll talk about. I think selecting big fish is something we could speak about a lot.
Yeah, we were going to get into that because, like I say, I mean, I've been carp fishing a long time. I mean, how long have you been? How old are you now, Sam?
38.
Yeah, so you're 10 years younger than me. So you've been carp fishing a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I was fairly late to it. I did sort of usual sort of silver fishing when I was younger. I was a lot later to carp fishing. I think I was 18, possibly 19.
Yeah,
so 20 years ago. 20
still
years
a long
ago.
time. Still a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, not as long as some. I mean, some people started carp fishing when they were like sort of fucking 10 years old or something. That was not me. Definitely not. Yeah,
there was very few people when I was 10 years old, mate, who called themselves a carp angler. You just didn't meet anybody who was a carp angler at 10 then. I mean, you get it now. You get it now. Yeah, you get it now. Yeah. Well, they just weren't around the big fish weirs. I was 10 when I caught my first carp, but didn't really start specifically targeting carp until I was about 14. Yeah. And even then, that was a far cry from what I do today.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, you learn a lot, don't you, over the years? Mate,
it's learning like all the time. Learning all the time.
Yeah, because every water's slightly different as well. So you're always learning. If you're fishing different waters, I mean, that's another thing that does always amaze me. How some people can just stay on the same water for years and years and years and years and years. I mean, don't get me wrong. You get some waters that you probably could spend a lifetime on, but it's got to be a little bit boring just fishing the same waters for years and years and years.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot from other anglers, from experienced anglers, but then if you're passionate, you quickly come to a point where you're not learning any more from talking to people. It's like the carp themselves are the biggest teacher. You know, they're the ones that are teaching you.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
Who's going to teach you something right now? It's going to be the carp, isn't it? And their behavior and their reaction to different things you're doing. That's how you learn, right?
Every water is different, isn't it? Every water is different,
yeah.
and that's why. Sorry.
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. There's lots of transferable things when you get flipped from water to water, and that's why you can go on one water and it's similar to the water that took you 3 years before you got any decent results, but you go on the next one, it takes you 3 months.
Yeah,
because you've learned that much from the one that took you 3 years.
Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. But then, and the thing, and you can be attached to a certain ideal or certain theory for years, swear blind by it, proven so many times. You can go on a different water, and it just gets fucking blown out. You know,
it doesn't work the same.
That's there's no mastering. There's no completion point of this hobby that we love, carp fishing. And bait is a different hobby altogether. Really, there's definitely no completion there. But I think that's what's so compelling about it, right?
Yeah, it's captivating. I think once you're interested in bait, then you're always going to be interested in bait. I mean, most of the older anglers that I talk to now are far more interested in bait than the younger anglers. I mean, when I say older, most of the anglers who are 50 or above, who I speak to, because I do speak to a few old fossils, like, and most of them are far more interested in bait than everybody who's, say, 35 or less, because they started carp fishing at a different era.
Era.
Things are completely different, Things are completely different. Most people are my age or above, they've all made their own bait.
I can't believe you're 10 years older than me.
Yeah, I'm an old man nearly now.
Yeah, I thought you were younger than. I really thought you were younger.
Well, I must admit, Sam, I have aged well. I have aged well, pal.
Fine wine, mate.
Plenty of cans of Carling, mate. That rubbish what you went through.
Guinness as well, apparently.
Hey, do you know something? I've only had one Guinness in the whole time we've been talking.
See, I'm pretty pissed. I'm seven beers in, 8 beers in.
I've had one Guinness, mate, and I've been in the fridge once at the start, poured myself a pint of Guinness, and I haven't been back and got another one.
Jeez, why is that?
And I haven't even, I don't know, mate. I'm not drinking that much now. I haven't even opened my Mr. Pork scratchings either. I brought them especially for the podcast.
Jeez, mate. Slacking. You get into a chat though, don't you? You like talking.
Yeah. About fishing, mate. Yeah.
You do. Yeah.
Some subjects, mate, I just can't be about. I'd have nothing to say, but not fishing, mate. Not fishing.
No, sometimes we talk on the phone. This isn't a criticism, but I'm sure, like, I'll say like 2 words from the whole conversation, and you're on about something. You're like, well, anyway, I'll let you go. Good to speak. I'm like, yeah. Like, I've only said 2 words. You're very passionate, mate, and it's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, look, come back on soon. We'll
have to see how this one goes down, Sam. You never know. People might not like this one.
Well, I mean, your first one was 2 years ago, and then your second one was, I think it was a couple of weeks after that, wasn't it? We still get people. Was it a couple of months?
Couple of months after the first one, I think the second one was, yeah.
Yeah, we get messages about it all the time. I think out of everyone, you're by far the most mentioned guest that we get messages about. Still to this day, all the time.
I'm very honoured with that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't just say that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure it'll go down well.
Yeah, I mean, like I say though about the thing where we could have chatted a bit more about targeting big fish.
Yeah.
I mean, I ain't caught the most fish in the world, but I have caught the biggest fish out of quite a lot of lakes, which I'm quite proud of, really. And I definitely think there's loads and loads of things that you can do. I mean, there's obvious ones like visual fishing and stuff like that, because I have caught something like that where I've seen them and stuff. But there's loads of things, and there's loads of things related to bait, capture history, and different things like that. Age of the fish. There's stacks of things I think that you can implement that'll help you catch the bigger fish in the lakes what you're fishing.
I agree with you. Totally. And there's patterns, isn't there? And then generally, I don't know if you would agree with this. Let's say there's sort of like the 4 of the older school fish. I'm just using that number as a useful number. Once you kind of unlock it, like you get one, you're like, okay, that's my theory. I think that you get another one, you kind of locked on, and then it almost becomes easier to catch the older, what some people would say the A team is, because you kind of figure it out for that water. Have you found that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I say, I've fished loads, a massive cross section of waters, and I've been lucky on some places because there's been hardly any other serious competition, and on those waters to catch like the bigger fish, I've always found that just good baits and putting it in just works a treat straight away. But you don't always get that luxury, do you?
No, especially not busier waters. It's
Well, that's what I mean. If you're on anywhere now and there's any good fish in there, there'll be somebody else who's trying to catch them as well, won't there?
Of course, yeah. All right, mate.
Just pouring myself another Guinness now, Sam. Now you've reminded me, I'm a bad boy, only drinking one.
Oh, gee, I thought we were wrapping up.
Yeah, we are, mate. Don't worry, I'm going to have this Guinness now.
No, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I just feel like the podcast has come to that end. But I mean, if we do wrap up now, I'd love to get you back on like soon. Within in a week or two, if you're up for it.
Yeah. I mean,
there's always.
I can chat about fishing forever, mate. Like you say, it's my passion. So beats doing anything else on the night time, mate. I spend most of the day thinking about fishing and talking about fishing. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot in your brain regarding carp fishing. I know a lot of people would find it fascinating. I probably need to get better at extracting it out of you and figuring out what questions to ask when. I just need to get better at interviewing, but I think there's a lot.
I'll be honest with you. I think you're quite good at it. You're pretty accomplished at it now because you've done it quite a number of times.
I just fluff it through, mate. I just wing it. Totally wing it.
I think it always comes across pretty good, mate, to be honest with you.
But
I mean, I started doing this podcast, what I'm doing, and at the minute I'm just sort of interviewing anglers who've been at it a long time because I know you shouldn't say it, but they're more on my level because I've been doing it a long time. So I like listening to the history about what they've done and what they've caught and how they've learned this and they've moved on to here and done that. So that's sort of the area that I'm doing at the minute. I mean, we do go right up to modern stuff. I mean, like I said, the last one that I did with John, it ended up contemporary because it's the water that he's on now and the results he's had with these special bags, like that were very similar train of thought to this for Enzymes that I came up with for solid bags. I mean, he's caught way bigger fish than what I've caught. I've only had him to like low 30s on that. And he's had some big fish to 47 pounds. And them really are big fish from the Midlands. Them are monsters, 47 pounds. That's a big fish. I mean, it's a big fish from anywhere, but from this area of the country, the Midlands, that's a real big fish.
This is what's been caught on this Enzyme product, right?
No. This is like I say, he came up with the same idea for these super boosted bags with certain additives, and he was using it, and it was this very similar thing. You'll have to listen to the podcast I've done if you can. Yeah, but it was a mad coincidence that we both came up with the same thing at the same time. But the problem what I have is I come up with something, test it for a bit, catch a few fish on it, and then I ditch it off and just think, well, that's all right now. People can use that and buy it off me, and then I'll start messing about with something else. Yeah. I mean, it's like at the moment, I've been using the oldest bait that I've got that I came up with in 1996 because I've never caught a 30 on it. Never caught an English 30 on that bait. It's the only bait I've ever made, and I've never caught in it. No, the nut bait I've never caught a 30 on that. And I just thought to myself, I'd like to catch a big fish on that bait because I caught loads of fish on it years ago, and I don't sell much of it, but it'd just be nice to catch a big one on it. So I've been messing about with that, but I'm a bit crazy really sometimes because people say to me, "Well, why don't you use this all the time, or that all the time?" But I've heard Frank Warwick say it. He enjoys catching fish on different methods, and I'm a bit the same. I enjoy tinkering around and just catching on different ways and different baits and stuff. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy doing that.
Mm. Yeah. There's a bit of a thrill in it, isn't it? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean,
I said this earlier. Like we're as bait makers, we are all looking. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are all looking for that fucking magic sequence to happen where it just outfishes everything else. We're all looking for that. I don't care what people say.
No. I'll be totally honest with you, Sam. I ain't, mate, because I don't think you will ever find that.
Yeah, but you still have that little glimmer in you, right? I know you do.
Well, we spoke about it before, and carp fishing's changed that much now. The reason why I even had an idea for this from enzyme stuff that I'm selling for bags and sticks is because I've noticed that the way you've got to catch them sort of changing. A lot of it's about attraction now. And I was talking to another angler I know, very good angler. I won't mention his name. He's just had a 62 the other week, and that's in England. And we were talking about it, and he says it's the same on the water he's fishing. It's all about attraction. A lot of it now is all about attraction. And I mean, I know this will be playing right into your hands because then you'll go, well, yeah, that's why I need these super hook baits. But it's all about the attraction of your trap. Getting the right signals in the water, solubility, ground baits, different powders and stuff, doing things to your bait. And I think it is now on a lot of busy waters because you've got lots of waters now as well where the owners are feeding the lakes. I mean, I know you don't fish anywhere what's like that, but there's a lot of waters where you're doing it now. But you're fishing lakes where you're pre-baiting all the time and you're all pre-baiting, so it's a similar scenario.
Some of them, yeah, some of them. But I mean, no, pre-baiting a lake is very different from a stock of fish that has been constantly fed ever since it was, a seaweed.
Yeah,
very different, mate.
Totally different, mate. Totally different.
Yeah,
I agree with you entirely. Because back in, like, I call it the golden years when I started serious carp fishing, pre-baiting was a massive edge, and it still is now. I would imagine on the right waters.
It is an edge. Oh, it is. Oh, it really is.
On the right waters, yeah. But I don't fish anywhere now, and I haven't fished anywhere for ages. Well, I have one water, but it was, it was exactly like the old scenario where you go on with some bait and you'll catch the biggest fish in the lake pretty quick because there's nobody putting anything in there. It was just one of them scenarios. Wasn't the richest lake in the world. They were old fish. But I haven't fished anywhere now with any big fish in for ages where pre-baiting's even viable.
Yeah. It's difficult. Banks are busy now, aren't they? There's a lot of fucking anglers.
The only time you can sort of pre-bait, if you like, is whilst you're fishing and then hope you can drop in same swim the following week.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, because I always think that bait that goes in the lake, you can even sometimes sacrifice a session and think to yourself, well, I'm going to try and get about 6 kilo in this week so they can have a good taste of it. And you might think to yourself at the end of the session, I've overcooked the bait and that's why I haven't caught. I put way too much in. But then you can think to yourself, well, at least a fair few of them have had a taste of it now for the next session.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Something's better than nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, because if you believe in this attachment thing with bait and you can get them looking for that search image of your bait, then the more bait you can get in, the better.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, we should do it. We should do this social. Me and you should meet up. Anyone else can come if they want, but I mean, we should meet up, have a little bit of a fish off, and maybe record a podcast on the.
Love a Strawberry Fields social. Go down the Mad Place, Strawberry Fields.
I'm up for it. I'm well up for it.
It's a crazy place, that, Sam. It'll blow your mind.
When did you last fish it?
I haven't fished it for 4 years. I fished it 3 times, twice in 2013. I caught one, lost one, the first session. Second session, well, as good as lost one. I had it taken. Yeah, that was a bit of a disaster. And then the third time I went, I must have had, mate, I had about 4 weird takes that session. And I just think they're just riggy as anything, mate, because it's that small, the lake is. It really is a strain. Well, you'll see if you go. Matt, if you can catch one out of there, right, I'll say this now on the podcast. If you can catch one out of there on your first or second night, I'll take my hat off to you.
Done. Okay. Bet on. Challenge accepted. I'll give it.
It really is a very tricky water. I'll tell you.
Did you say you're friends with the owner?
Yeah, I'm pretty pally with Lenny. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like don't talk to him all the time, but he'll be in my swim all the time if we go down there, mate, having a cup of tea.
Yeah. And is it like it's easy to get a place on there, or you got to sort of know someone? What?
No, anyone can fish. You just ring him up. If you wanted to do a social down there with me, and say 4 of us went down there, I'll just ring him up and book on, and just pay him the money, and then we go down.
Okay. Yeah. We'll sort it out. I'm serious about it. I'm deadly serious.
I always think he's been feeding them with hot dogs or something, because he always tells you the best bait. He always tells you the best bait in there. He says, "Boy, there's a crap in here. Hot dogs or something like I always say to you, or mussels or cockles or whatever." And I always used to say to my mates, he must be injecting the hot dogs with steroids because the fish got that big.
Why does he say hot dogs? That's weird. That's an odd thing to say.
Hot dogs are a good bait on there, mate. They caught loads of fish out of there. Have you never caught a carp on a hot dog?
I've caught them on Pepperami.
Yeah, well, hot dogs down there, mate.
Hot dogs is the way, is it?
Oh, mate, that lake will blow your mind. If we go down there, we'll have some fun. Trust me.
Yeah, we should.
We'll see if your super hook baits work in there, mate.
This is what I want to do. This is what I'm hoping for. We'll pitch them against the. We'll pitch them against your hot dogs. How about that? You've got a Frankfurter bait, haven't you?
I won't be using hot dogs, mate.
What will you be using?
Never you mind what I'll be using.
Will you use one of your baits? I'll use one of Opti baits, and we'll see what comes out tops.
Yeah. I'm up for it. I'm up
for it, mate. I'm really up for it. Well, Dean, hopefully you'll come back on in the very, very near future, and we'll cover the other bits we didn't get a chance to cover.
Yeah, no worries, mate. It's been nice talking to you again, Sam.
You too. Take care, man.
And you, buddy. Bye, mate.